Yeah. Grand Rising, Grand Rising. How's everybody doing? First and foremost, first and foremost, hold on for it. First and foremost, I'm going to thank everybody for all the well wishes, the birthday well wishes, and for the gifts. I want to thank everybody for the well wishes and the birthday gifts. I greatly appreciate it. It was a good day. Today was a good day. It's a good day with me and my bride. Really had a great day, great evening. Did the salt float. She took me out for a nice steak dinner. Well, I had steak. I had filet mignon. Then we went and found a great. She took me to a whiskey bar. Got me some of my favorite cigars. I needed some new shades. Got me some of those. Got me some new cufflinks. So I want to thank my wife first of all for a great birthday. It was one of the best. I'm not a big surprise person, party person when it comes to my birthday. I don't do a lot of celebrations, but I want to thank my wife. She made yesterday, my birthday, a great day, and I really do appreciate that. I really appreciate it. So we had a good time. That little whiskey bar we found, man. Well, we didn't find it. She found it. That whiskey bar we went to yesterday. That I want to turn that thing into a cigar line. That thing was on point. That's one of the best aesthetically pleasing places that I've been to, as far as like a whiskey bar. So we had a great time yesterday. So again, thank my wife. I want to thank all of you guys. I didn't know that it was Debbie Tate's birthday yesterday as well. So if I had known that, I would have wished her happy birthday on here. But we had a great time, and I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. So back to the grind. I'm 54. 54 and ready to go. That's what I was saying. 54 and ready to go. So now we are back. And it was a very interesting conversation. I did post a video the other day where I was talking about the fact that America was founded on Christian principles, and I was being very sarcastic about it, but it was a very honest statement, and it was a part of America being founded on Christian values that most people don't really think about. But in addition to that, a lot of what we see now today is people trying to make America into a Christian nation, and this is where, for us who have deconstructed from this religion, we have to be mindful and be watchful to make sure that it doesn't. Right? Good morning, Debbie Tate. I wish you would have told me yesterday that yesterday was your birthday as well. Happy belated birthday, Debbie Tate, on Facebook. We're on TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Okay. All right. So let me get a little closer. Let me talk to you. Where we are in this country, because as me and my wife are making our plans of how we're going to live this glorious life that we have our plans are always subject to change. I never have a plan that I will not. That's never have the opening to change. And part of that is, we're looking to be in America for a few more years, a number of years, and before we jump off and go move somewhere else, be in America, have a base of operation, go inspect some places around the world, travel before we make a decision as to where we're going to live outside this country. But while we're here, we still have to maintain whatever protections from these different groups, these sectarian groups. And the main one is Christianity and the idea of America trying to move into being a Christian-based nation, which goes 100% against what the intent of the Constitution of America is about. But of course, the argument that they have is that America was based on Christian values, and America is a Christian nation, was founded as a Christian nation. And so, although on one end, I'm going to be a smartass about America being founded on Christian values, but we will definitely get into the details of how America is not and was not formed to be a Christian nation. Uh, so, let's, I'm 54. I'm ready to go. So if you didn't see the video that I posted, not yesterday, but on what's yesterday was Wednesday, on Tuesday. If you didn't see the video that I posted on Tuesday, basically I said that yes, America was founded on Christian values, but not the Christian values that most people would think about. If you were to think about it, America was founded on the Christian value of slavery of foreigners and indentured servitude of those of your tribe. If you recall in Leviticus 25, from verses 34 all the way down to verses 49, it gives a description of how if it's an Israelite and an Israelite has falls into debt and an Israelite needs help, then that Israelite can sell himself to a person, but yet to another Israelite, but yet that Israelite is to be freed after 7 years in the year of Jubilee. If they came in with a family, their family leaves with them. And you give them money and additional things when they leave. But it goes into that's how an Israelite is supposed to be. And an Israelite is not supposed to be treated harshly. You're supposed to treat them fairly. You're supposed to pay them, so on and so forth. That's how an Israelite is to be treated if they're brought under financial servitude, which the Europeans, when they brought over Irish, when the Anglicans brought the Irish, when they brought the Scottish, when they brought anybody else over, you could come over under indentured servitude if you couldn't pay your freight, or if you owe money. And then after 7 years, your debt is paid off, and that person goes on and live their own life. And even during that time, they're not treated as a slave, which is the same way that Leviticus 25 demonstrates how you're supposed to treat a fellow Israelite. This is exactly what was done in America. This is the Christian value of that. Now, also what was done in America, the Christian value of the foreign nations, you may buy your slaves, your male and female slaves, and you will own them as property and pass them down to your sons as inheritance of property, and you can treat them harshly because they are slaves. That was what America did. They went to foreign lands, whether it is the indigenous people of America or the West Africans, and they bought them as slaves. Later on, they began to steal them as slaves, and they or conquer and colonize Africa and bring them as POWs. But in either case, these was people who were not of the same tribe of the people who were doing the enslaving in America. So to bring them over as slaves and own them as property and pass them down to your sons, it's Christian values based on the Bible. It's exactly what the Bible says. So the way that a woman is treated in America during the colonial time frames of America, when the Constitution was established, throughout the 1800s, throughout the 1900s, all the way up until around about 1970, women were treated as second-class citizens in America. But when we look at the Bible, we see that women are also treated as second-class citizens throughout the Bible. The woman is to be submissive. The woman is to submit to her own husband. She is to be silent in the churches. The woman is to stay at home, take care of the home. The woman is the tail. The man is the head. The woman, if she were to give a promise, then that promise can be invalidated within a certain time frame by her father or by her husband. The woman is sold off into marriages. So the Bible treats women as second-class citizens, and America treated women as second-class citizens for the majority of its history. So therefore, America was founded on the Christian value of treating women as a second-class citizen, right? This guy Rupert, Christians amaze me. He says that the Bible never mentions slaves but servants. Big difference, because he's never read the Bible nor understands the Bible. But anyway, I will not interrupt myself by somebody else's comment. So when we see how America doesn't allow for domestic violence, there was no such thing as a husband beating his wife being illegal in the 1920s, in the 1800s, in the 1700s. Hell, it didn't even change until roughly around the high 1970s, low 1980s before that changed. Oh, somebody just wrote that. And they wrote that marital rape laws didn't come into place until around the 1980s. So as a husband, your wife, her body was subject to whatever your aggressions were. This was common. This is also what we see in the Bible. In Deuteronomy, I believe it's 22, it says that if you see a woman who is a captive, a slave, a POW, you can just take her and just make her your wife. And she doesn't have a choice in the matter. When Jacob wanted to marry Leah, when Laban ushered in Leah and he slept with her, Leah didn't have a question. She couldn't question the matter. When Hagar was told that she had to have sex with old as Abraham, she didn't have an option. She did not give consent. So the woman is treated like property in America. The woman was treated like property in the Bible. If you're saying that America has Christian values, then you must also include the values that you don't like. And those are certainly some of the values of Christianity that America did uphold. They held those values very intently. So then we have to, now, are there some values that America may have upheld that you can solidify with Christian values? There are some that are not as bad, to be fair. There are some that are not as bad. I just simply can't think of them. They don't have the same level of value. Because when I look at how America was established, the overwhelming majority of things that were established America as far as this legal code was British common law, was Roman law. It was not Christian values that established the legal code within the United States. When you look at the arguments for and against the Constitution, the Federalist Papers 100% went against any type of setting up of a church, went against having a religious test in order for someone to become president. As a matter of fact, Article 6 of the United States Constitution makes it illegal to have a religious test. And in one of the Federalist Papers written by James Madison, he specifically said that there should not be a federal test, so that other religious groups cannot then determine who is going to be in the leadership roles of the United States, whether it's in the Congress, the Senate, or the president, or the judicial services, so that we don't have sectarian conflicts. James Madison was adamant about having a separation of church and state. Thomas Jefferson was adamant about having separation of church and state. As a matter of fact, it was Thomas Jefferson who was quoted. It was Thomas Jefferson is where we get the quotes of separation of church and state, when he said that the Constitution provides a wall between the separation of church and state. Thomas Jefferson himself, not a Christian, but more of a Unitarian. Hamilton, not a Christian, more of a Unitarian. Franklin, more of a not a Christian, more of a Unitarian. They rejected the Trinity and the Orthodox teachings of Christianity. They were trying to prevent what was happening and had been happening within Europe during that time frame and before, where religious groups vied for power and utilized their power to force people to participate within their religion. So America was not set up to be a Christian nation. The papers, the anti-federalist papers, actually invoke God over and over and over again, which of course their argument lost, and which is why the United States, in our Constitution, it does not mention God. The Declaration of Independence does, but the Constitution does not mention any reference to God or Creator, only the Declaration of Independence. So, and this country is not based on the Declaration of Independence. This country is based on the United States Constitution. So therefore, America was never set up to be a Christian nation. And you can't even, and if you're going to say that America was set up based on Christian values, yes, I'm going to agree when you think about the values of slavery, the value of how women are treated, the value of child labor. Yeah, the value of war and conquest. It was the Christian value of go and spread the good news by killing all the people who were the indigenous people, killing as many indigenous people. And then when you force a treaty, you force the treaty that says that these indigenous people must follow Christianity if this treaty is to be aligned. Sure. Coercion, yeah, a Christian value. That works. That works. And also, I think it was who was the second president? John Adams. John Adams specifically in the Treaty of Tripoli said America is not a Christian nation. Right? So here's the problem. There is a large, loud group, and even Christians should be against this. I'm going to tell you why you Christians should be against America being a Christian nation or is a Christian nation. The loudest group in America that is trying to, who is spouting the nonsense of America being a Christian nation, do not like you as a Christian, would not support you as a Christian. The Christian nationalist movement, unless you are a white male, you are not part of their thinking. It's kind of like when women join the church, women, you are not part of the thinking of the church. You are merely pawns within the church. So if you are any other kind of Protestant, you are Methodist, you are AME, you are spiritual, if you're any of those things, that group is not for you. And so if you're new to my channel, I do my little lecture first, and before I invite guests. So stop. So shh. Right. So you're not part of that group. You're not a part of it. So I said you're not a part of it. You are not a part of that group. What is the old saying that the man from World War II said? He said that when it came after the handicap, he said something. When it came after the handicap, I said nothing because I wasn't handicapped. When it came after the gypsies, I said nothing because I wasn't gypsy. When it came after the Jews, I said nothing because I wasn't Jew. But then when it came after the Protestant, there was no one there to defend me. Right? So if you don't defend something, if you sit back, you will end up becoming forced. You will end up forced into a group that you don't want. When I got to Germany, I met many World War II veterans from Germany who were Germans. And although embarrassed about what they had done, they all seemed to recognize that they were never part of the party, but the party, that small party swept through and got rid of all the competition. So it wasn't that they was part of the party, but they had to be subjugated to the party. And if Christians themselves don't recognize that America is not a Christian nation, America was not founded based on just good Christian values, that you can get swept up from whatever version of Christianity you believe in to having to be forced under the heel of this one particular type of Christianity, which that is what the United States Constitution and the Federalist Papers is protecting by not making this a Christian nation, right? So you might not want to fight me too hard today, and you might want to pay attention as we get ready to get into the debate portions of the, well, it's not so much all debates, but the guest portions of today's show, right? Because your very religious freedom to believe in Jesus the way you believe in Jesus might be at stake. if you sit up there and say America is a Christian nation, and that's what you want to maintain. All right. So I don't know who hits the buttons first. I just start at the bottom and make my way up. But now I can track who comes on and when on TikTok, Facebook. I mean TikTok. Thankfully, Facebook and YouTube or StreamYard, it tells me who came up first, second, and third. But if I don't go immediately, so I switch back and forth based on when people come up. I only have one guest at a time. If you can see the rules, one guest at a time. I can interrupt, but guess you cannot interrupt me when I'm talking. Belief and testimony is not proof, and no preaching. Right? Those are the rules of the show. Like it or not. Never mind. All right, all these little people, they want to come, then they ran, they left.
First, bro, what's up?
How you doing?
Bro, I'm doing good, bro. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. Are you over 21?
Yes.
All right, just had to make sure. All right.
Yes, sir. So America was not founded to be a Christian nation and etc.
Mm-hmm.
Their Christian laws, they actually have a set of Christian laws, and they're actually black laws. So there's a whole bunch of word semantics and stuff. It was definitely not founded on Christianity because Christianity meant black.
What?
Yeah.
What do you? I'm not tracking what you're saying here.
All right, you probably don't know about the Christian laws and et cetera, from slavery and et cetera. But look, this is what I came
up with, bro. What I'm saying is you're not making a clear statement. I don't. There's no. What are you saying? It's just words. You're saying Christian, black, law, slavery, but you're not formulating a structure of thought. Like, what are you saying?
America was not founded on Christianity because Christianity it means black.
Because Christianity means black. Where do you get that idea from?
That's their definition.
Who is they?
Because George Washington, the founding fathers, the people who founded this nation, allegedly.
And where does that? And what's your source for that?
My source?
Yeah, because in every other definition of the word Christianity, from the time frame of the second century, it has meant.
Let's talk about the political definition, bro, not the etymology.
Oh, see, you. How did you think I was supposed to just know you're talking about the political definition? So where do you get this idea of the political definition of Christianity means black?
Because of their set of laws that they have called the Christian laws that date back to slavery.
What Christian laws are? What are you have to be more expressive in this, because I'm not. What you're saying is just like you're just throwing out statements.
Look, it's cool. We know it wasn't founded on Christian nation, but look, I know you. I know you from somewhere, bro. You look very familiar.
Okay.
How long have you been around?
I'm 54 years old.
Yeah, like in these communities talking about this stuff and etc.
In 2015, but we're getting off the subject matter.
Hold on. Are you Lorenzo?
Yes, I am. What's that guy?
Oh shit.
Okay.
You just screenshot my picture.
I sure did.
You an FBI agent. You working for them niggas, bro?
Nah, I just have creepy people sometimes come up here claiming that they know me.
Yeah,
or
you just screenshotted me, bro. You about to send me to the Freemasons. They about to put me on the list.
Dude, do you claim that you know me and we don't? And there is no list that's like that. That's a different kind of list. You don't know.
But why do you screenshot me?
Because sometimes I have people come up here threatening me. And
I'm not threatening you, bro.
You claim that you know me. How do you know me?
Shit you was teaching, bro, about the chakras and shit. That's real shit.
Okay, so you followed my page.
Yeah, bro, but I didn't know this was you.
Okay.
But look, bro, I know you've been in the community around some Masons and stuff, Young Fair, all these other Masons. I know you screenshotted my picture. Bro,
Yeah.
not send me to these people.
No, I'm not gonna understand. When I screenshot the page, it's just precautionary because I've had people come up here and threaten me, threaten my family, that sort of thing. If you don't do anything like that, then it's just not, it's something I will delete. And based on what you said, it's already something that I will delete because there's no need for it. You understand what I'm saying?
What you think I would threaten you?
It was a precaution because I didn't know what your intent was. But now that I've heard a few other words that you said, I don't think you have that intent because
bro, definitely not.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, bro. Bro, you a black brother, bro. I'm not on that, man. I'm not on that shit, bro. We both black.
Right. So I heard you mention Young Pharaoh, so that gives me an indication that you've been following the page since probably around like 2016, 17, around that time frame. Because I know 2017 was the last time I was ever on alive with him, with Pharaoh, Young Pharaoh.
Yep.
That was before he wigged out, because the young man did lose his shit for a minute.
Yo, do you know what happened to him?
I used to know, but it's been so long I forgot. Yeah.
You think he would say too much stuff?
No. No.
Is he a controlled opposition playing the alter ego?
You know, I'm not. Okay, so let me put it this way. There are some, because as I think about it, there are certain things I do know about him, but those things were told to me in privacy. So that's not something that I'm going to say, right? I'm not even going to get into the conversation about him and what happened with him. Because
what a shame.
No, you probably are going up the wrong tree as far as what went down with him. As many people did during that time frame, but it was not for me to come out and defend or denigrate that young man. If you were paying attention back then to me, you just noticed I stopped being associated. It wasn't out of fear or nothing like that. I just didn't like the direction that things were going, so I just stopped associating. So anyway, so back to this Christianity meaning black, right?
Yeah.
So on a quick search of this, is the concept of Christianity meaning black is not a standard political definition, but an idea at its core of Black liberation theology pioneered by James H. Cohen in the 1960s. This theological framework argues that Christianity is inherently a religion of liberation, with core concerns for poor and oppressed, which is the American context, means centering the experience of Black people. The political interpretation of Christianity has shaped the Black church role as a central hub for social justice, political action, and community empowerment. So this has nothing to do with George Washington, and this is just, to me, just and looking at some of these other key aspects of this type of institution with a speed reading it. This is just a gentleman in the 1960s utilizing the fact that the protesting and everything that was going on in the 1960s, the civil rights movement, since it was instituted it was like heavily led, I ain't gonna say instituted, but heavily led by the Black church and organized within Black churches, that it utilizes different themes of the Bible, like coming out of Egypt with Moses and those sorts of things. that because of that, they kind of made it into a point to push. But as far as it going back to the time frame of the founders, no. This was something that came up in the 60s.
All right, so look, was slavery a thing in the Americas before they founded the Americas as a nation?
Was slavery in the Americas? I'm not 1% sure, but I would say probably yes, to a certain degree. Well, yes, in the Americas. I definitely know that there was slavery in with the Aztecs and with the Mayans and the Incas. There was definitely slavery, and I would imagine that there was probably slavery with the North American tribes as well.
Yeah, so that's true.
Slavery has.
So before they founded the nation,
Huh?
So look, when they founded the nation and stuff like that, they had laws for slavery, and you could look them up. They were called the Christian laws. And they were able to do certain heinous crimes to us because they looked at us as slaves and stuff like that. And they still use these laws today. And Christian meant black.
I just explained to you why when Christianity was associated with black in a political sense, but that has nothing to do with the founding of this country.
Yeah, it does, because these laws were incorporated with the founding of this nation.
So you didn't listen to nothing that I read.
And they still exist today. No, you didn't even look up what I was talking about.
I looked up exactly what you was talking about. Well, first, when I looked up Christian,
did you find the black Christian laws?
Okay. The term black Christian laws likely refers to the laws that use Christian principles to justify the enslavement and control of black people, particularly during slavery, not a single set of laws. These laws included doctrines and emphasized submission of masters and laws and code noir that requires the lives of enslaved people, often using religious rhetoric. This is the same thing I was saying earlier in here about the Christian values, that some of the Christian values, that if you're going to take the good ones, you got to take the bad ones. And slavery is one of those aspects of Christian values based on the Bible in Leviticus 25. But that doesn't mean it means black, because that's been a law within that's been a law within the Bible since it was written, since it was oral tradition, even when it was oral tradition and before it was written around the 1700, the 700s BCE, and finally finished around 200 BCE. That's always been a part of the Bible before anybody identified anyone based on race. So that is not something that just pertains to America. But yes, the Bible they did use the Bible to enslave people in America.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about how they use the Bible to enslave us.
Then what are you talking about? Because I am bewildered.
Bro, the laws you just read, bro.
Those.
Now you looked it up and you found that. Now look up how Christian meant black.
I did. I looked up how Christian meant black, and it talked about a political movement in the 1960s. It had nothing to do with George Washington. You're mixing two different things together and trying to make it one, and it's not.
Bro, no, I'm not, bro. You gotta do research on it, bro. I said.
Okay, this is not an equitable conversation right here. I'm gonna go to the next question.
It's actually not, bro. But look, before you get me off, bro, look, we don't got no beef or no. Look,
I don't have any beef with you. I'm good with you.
Nah, facts. So look, right? Are you gonna? Cause look, whatever happened to young Pharaoh that happened, all these other people that happened, nobody's teaching about this stuff you and they used to teach about, bro. Like, you gotta come back and teach about this stuff, bro. The chakras, That's the like. What are you gonna come back to that, bro? Because we need that, bro.
I still talk about it. I just talk about it in a different sense. Listen, I still talk about the same thing.
Bro, the shit I seen, bro, you was breaking that shit down till it's full as roof. Nigga, that's how you gotta break that shit down. Oh, bro.
It started becoming when I was doing that like that, it started to become more of a religious following, and I did not want to start a religion. That is why I moved. That is why I moved it more into historical perspective, and I moved it into when it comes to things like the chakras. That is a personal journey because the way I was talking about it back then, it was starting to form a religious following, and I'm not Jim Jones. I know the time frame you're talking about, and yeah, it was. Nope. I do not want to be a religious leader.
Damn, bro.
Because if you remember back then, I kept telling people also, don't follow me and believe in me in this way because I do not want to be responsible for anybody's religious beliefs. But you have to go on this is a personal journal. This is a personal journey, and it's something that you have to figure out for yourself. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's but your own. If you remember, I used to also express that quite often, that it is your own personal journey. Don't just follow what I do. Don't just do what I do. Don't expect the same things that happen within my life to happen in your life. Because we're just utilizing the chakra system as a method of making yourself a better person and existing on a higher vibrational plane in your thoughts, and so that your actions and deeds follow. So remember that part. All right.
Hey, bro. Hell yeah, bro. I'm about to get off this, bro.
All right.
But hey, bro, if you ever do come back, I'm gonna repost your shit. I'm gonna do all that shit, bro.
All right. I appreciate it.
All right, bro.
All right. That was a blast of my past for real. Man, got me thinking about people and things that I ain't thought about in years. Tor, Will, Tor.
Be taking your husband to get a whole bunch of breakfast. They give a whole bunch of breakfast at once a month. Instead and stuff.
Okay. I think they accidentally hit the request button. Because but I couldn't understand what they were saying. Okay, so that was an interesting little that didn't go into what we're talking about. I see the people over here talking about slave. Nowhere in that passage mentions slaves. Why are y'all even wasting y'all time? Rupert has tried to come on here and explain that and try to convince people that the Bible is not talking about slavery, when in fact it clearly is a slave. He reads out of the King James Version. The King James Version uses bondman, not understanding that bondman also means slave. But even the King James Version of the Bible is one of the worst versions of the Bible. Leviticus clearly is talking about a slave. So y'all have had that. Y'all just gonna go in a circle. You're just gonna go in a circle. Because the same slavery that happened in America is the exact same slavery that the Bible speaks of. Right? Treatment doesn't matter. It is the process, the standard of what American slavery was and what the chattel slavery that the Bible speaks of. Both are chattel slavery. It's simple as that. Right? But you're not going to change Rupert's mind. So I wouldn't even bother. These are the people on Facebook. Because he's not going to accept the fact that his King James Version is incorrect. Because when we look at Leviticus 25, it clearly is talking about slavery because it says you will own them as property. Even if you use the word bondman, even if you use the word servant, the fact that and you know how they always talk about context, you got to think in context. If you took it into this full context, if you own a person as a piece of property and can pass them down as an inheritance, whether you call them a servant, a bondman, or a slave, you are owning a person as property. That's slavery, no matter how you slice it. Right? Just, I mean, how much conscientious bias do you have to have that you try to single out one word and not actually accept the fullness of it, where it says you will own them as property? Right? And the fact of the matter is, like, look, I know you TikTokers, y'all can see it when I put people's comments up here, and I know this is not the fullness of what we're talking about. He said, how is a bondman the same as a slave? One works for free and one works to pay off the debt. Big difference. If you have a person who's an indentured servant, which is only Israelite to Israelite, that person is an indentured servant. That's the terminology that we utilize for that. If you're looking at a person and you own them as property and you can pass them down as property, what do you call that, Rupert? What do you call a person that you own and you can pass them down to your sons as an inheritance? What is that called? Can you be intellectually honest to answer that question? I mean, really? And yes, and there's a big difference between indentured servitude and slavery. See, and this, I knew it. He was going to be intellectually dishonest. Property, not slave. If you own a person, for the rest of us who know how to use our brain, right? For the rest of us who know how to use our brain, if you own a person, what is that person called? What is that person? Is that person a slave? And Believer wrote, if a person chooses, but they can't be kidnapped. First of all, the kidnapping is talking about kidnapping of other Israelites. That's the first thing. The second thing, if a person chooses, that's indentured servitude. Leviticus 25 clearly says you may buy your male and female slaves. This is a purchase. This is not somebody giving consent. This is them being purchased on an auction block. The person is not giving consent. See, being intellectually dishonest again, Rupert. Someone who hasn't paid off their debts. It doesn't talk about that's and what is so. Are y'all really that brainwashed? Are you really that brainwashed that you're going to keep repeating the same dumb shit? Verses 34 down to about 36, 37 is not talking about the same situation as verse 44 to about 48. Those are two separate situations. Y'all are so determined to make where the Bible doesn't endorse slavery that you just ignore parts of your own Bible. But what if the person refuses to be sold? So we saying ifs now? I mean, if a person refuses to be sold, back then, just like in transatlantic slave trade, you're most likely gonna get killed. but you're usually in a situation where you don't have a choice. You're already chained up. You're already on lockdown. There is no instance of a person refusing to be sold, and the Bible says, well, if the person refuses to be sold, then that person can't be sold. It doesn't say anything about that. Now you're adding to the text. No, Spaz Daz, he's not talking about being a slave to your mortgage. We're talking about somebody owning you, somebody you working for someone. Um, what Rupert is doing is taking the indentured servitude portions of Leviticus and trying to make that fit into the buying someone as property portion of Leviticus. And the two are talking about two very different situations. Once again, Leviticus in the earlier parts are talking about Hebrew to Hebrew. It is not talking about Hebrew to foreigner. It is specifically saying that other Hebrews should not own other Hebrews as slaves. Other Hebrews to other Hebrews, they should release them at the year of Jubilee. They should let them go free with their whole family if they came in with their whole family. They should be given all kinds of additional money when they are going free. And the only time you can make a Hebrew slave a permanent slave is if the Hebrew person who came in under indentured servitude is then given a wife by the slave master. The wife and the children don't go free and remain slaves. And then the man can say, well, I want to stay with my husband, and I want to stay with my wife and my children. And so then he gets an awl driven through his ear, and he then becomes a permanent slave. That's Hebrew to Hebrew. That's the whole thing. And you can't kidnap another Hebrew and make them a slave. And even if a Hebrew is indentured, is indebted to a foreigner, that Hebrew still only is a indentured servant, and then they should not be treated harshly. Verse 44 starts a whole nother category where it's talking about if for the Hebrew people, and only the Hebrew people can go out to foreigners who live amongst them and foreign nations and buy slaves and own them as property, male and female slaves, pass them down to your sons and daughters, and then that they can be treated as a slave, right? Which then goes to, I believe, Exodus 20, where it talks about if you beat your slave, as long as they don't die within a few days, the master is not punished. If they die 5 days later, the master's still not punished. Only if they die within the first couple of days is the master punished. Now, these same laws are on the books in places like Mississippi and Louisiana, where you can only beat your slave to a certain degree. But the brainwashing is that these people who believe in this book want to make the indentured servitude what it talks about when it's discussing foreigners and how to treat foreigners and the permanency of foreigners when they come into, and it says nothing about debt for them. Like, these are not foreigners who are in debt to them. This is, you just may buy them. Plain and simple, buy. And even if we went to Joshua, when the Messianites, the Messianites could not defeat the Canaanites that was in the territory that they were promised, Joshua tells them as a decree from God to force them, to make them to put them in forced labor. Forced labor is also slavery. So he's saying slavery. And then he tells them, of the nations around you, you will put them into forced labor as well. So you're going to enslave the people around you. This is what Joshua does after Moses supposedly is dead. So the Bible fully endorses property slavery, chattel slavery of foreigners to whatever your tribe is. But the brainwashing that goes on with these people is that they got to make it where this God never endorsed slavery so that they can say that the transatlantic slave trade was wrong, right? They got to be able to say that because they need to believe in this Bible. And they need to believe that this God is a good God. I am Time said the answer to your topic is no. I agree. America is not a Christian nation and was never set up to be a Christian nation. As a matter of fact, James Madison, in one of the Federalist Papers, wrote about how we must insist upon the plurality of religious beliefs in this nation, so that no one group, the majority, cannot become tyranny. The majority can't take over. The majority can't enforce their religious beliefs on everybody else. Isaac said their God's gonna be pissed off at them for lying about his God. You're right about that. Like, in order to get ready for this one, I reread some of the Federalist Papers and some of the anti-Federalist papers. Yeah, it took me a while to go through them. And I was amazed at how much the anti-Federalist papers, that those people wanted America to be a Christian nation. They wanted it to be a Christian nation. And these were people who were fighting against the acceptance of the United States Constitution. They didn't want the Constitution. They wanted a theocracy, right? But they lost because the Constitution does not create a theocracy and does and has a bunch of stuff to keep it from being a theocracy. One of the purposes of the freedom of the press and freedom of speech is to keep America from becoming a theocracy. The purpose of Article 6 is to keep America from becoming a theocracy or a religious-led Congress or Senate or judicial system. And all the primary so-called founding fathers, all the primary ones, were against America becoming a theocracy. What are we talking about? Franklin, Hamilton, Thomas, Madison, Adams, Washington. The prime movers, they were against America becoming a theocracy. And at least 3 of them weren't Christian. So America was never founded on Christianity. It is not meant to be a Christian nation. So when we have these certain groups out there who are trying to say America is a Christian nation and we need to enforce Christian values and we need to make our laws based off of so-called Christian values. One, our laws were based off of British common law and Roman common law. They were not based on Christian law. They're not based on the 10 Commandments. They're not based on any of that, right? Like, they're not based on the 10 Commandments. It was Roman common law without believing in Judaism or Christianity already said that murder was wrong and stealing was wrong. It already said those things. And our whole legal code is based on British common law and Roman law. It's not based on Christianity or even Judaism. And hell, Christianity and Judaism, as far as their legal system, is more based on the Code of Hammurabi than it is based on the 10 Commandments. So I don't know if I'm getting in much argument. Thinking I was gonna get a little, cause some of them right wingers would see this and be like, "No, yes it is," and have some kind of proof. But I don't think they're here. No, America's not found on Christianity. Exactly. I agree with you. Bim. I don't know what Patel talking about. Ain't got nothing to do with the conversation. And here's the interesting that Dalios said that that's why the majority of immigrants was fleeing their countries because of religious beliefs, right? So, oh, somebody just gave me something. Uh, Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the hearts. Test. Sorry. Thank you for the hearts. Many people, the first people to come over to the first Europeans to come to the Americas were fleeing because of religious persecution that was happening in their own country. Like people, oh, the Pilgrims and the Mayflower and all this kind of stuff. Um, those people came across because they were fleeing the religious persecution because, and this is what James Madison was saying about sectarian conflicts. That you had the Anglican Church was trying to force people on the British Isles to worship a certain way, to believe a certain way. Right? I misspelled it. Well, I know you meant beliefs. But they were trying to come because of how they were being persecuted. The Puritans is another group that came across because they were being persecuted by the Anglican Church and other sectarians groups within Europe. So these people were leaving. Some of the first colonists, the pioneers, and you know how it happened. Pioneers get slaughtered, settlers get the gold. These first European pioneers who came to the Americas, they were fleeing religious persecution because of the state-led bureaucracy that was under the theocracy, right? Because the king was the leader of the nation and the church, and so they were fleeing that to a place where they can worship freely, right? America has been known for that. Even when America was the colony, the first states, right, the 13 states, you had, and I am not a fan, so don't put it that way, just using that as an example. John Smith fled from, I think they was in Ohio, no, Pennsylvania, then to Ohio, and then to Utah, fleeing the legal persecution, but also religious persecution. You know, you made the whole religion up, but he was fleeing legal persecution, wrapped it up in a religion, and then ran out to Utah. You know, moved the whole, and as the movement grew, ran out to Utah, where they could freely practice Mormonism until they became a state. Then they had to change that shit up again. But that has been a common theme of this country where people have left of the country, and that still happens up to this day, right? Up to this day, that still happens. Right? There are Islamic women who flee their country to get to secular nations. They don't all come to America, but there are those who flee to other countries because they are under Shiar law, if I'm saying that right. I know the word, but I'm messing it up a little bit. But they flee. So when this country was established, it was established by people who were fleeing religious persecution. So when the founders, who have been generations later, are putting this country together with the Constitution, religious freedom was one of the primary thought processes that had to be ironed out. Sharia, thank you. By saying the word, I can say it. Sharia law. Appreciate that. And yeah, some of the Puritans were kicked out because some of them jokers are terrorists. And I used to know a lot more about that. I used to know a lot more about some of the Puritans who were kicked out of Europe because they were like literally destroying shit. Like, so that reminds me of how some of these groups today are trying to destroy stuff in order for them to push their narrative, right? In that part where I'll just read some of the comments real quick, kind of get my head wrapped around what y'all talking about. You said not the ones in Jamestown, not the ones in Jamestown. What? Now, after the place started being established and people started seeing that there was monetary opportunities, not everyone was coming for religious freedoms at that point. I'm just talking about those real first early ones in the 1500s. Them jokers, some of them early ones in the 1500s were coming for because of religious persecution. There was still always a migration for religious persecution, and then business opportunities start. Then people start coming for business opportunities. Honestly, this is why some people talk about, and I'm not trying to get into it, but America is a corporation because some of the first charters for America that were state funded corporations to come over here. Yeah, even those jokers who came on the Mayflower were state funded from England, state funded. What's mine? Now I believe they were state funded, and I think they did have to make a declaration of Christianity when they came across. Like I said, I read a lot of information this morning on it, and I came across something talking about that, but I didn't go too deep into that part of it. About the Mayflower being state funded and had to sign a Christian charter. And honestly, I don't give the founding fathers a whole lot of credit because most of them motherfuckers were slave owners. I do recognize that they were products of their environment. So I give them a little bit of just a smidgen of grace on that. But I will give them the credit they were trying to protect from what they knew this country would become. If you were to allow this country to have a religious test to where the state and the church are one and the same, then they would have just been setting up the same problems that Europe was having at that time frame, right? And they were guarding against it in hopes that later generations wouldn't fall into that trap. Right. But this country, anyone who thinks that it was set up that way, and if you're a Christian, you need to fight against America being a Christian nation. It may sound like it's in your favor, but recognize there's 42,000 different denominations of Christianity. And the ones who are gaining the most ground right now in the present day are not the ones who are going to be tolerant of your version of Christianity. And that's why Flynn, I'm with you. Flynn said that there were founding fathers that were not slaveholders because they found it wrong. So no excuses. For them to be enlightened men, because part of the Enlightenment movement that was happening in the 1700s was also influential in creating of the Constitution. So you would hope that, but in my life, I've come to recognize just because people are intelligent or enlightened in one area, it doesn't mean that they're intelligent and enlightened across the board. You can be intelligent, enlightened, and still be stupid as fuck when it comes to a certain issue. Because really, none of them fought for women's rights. I can't think of one of them that fought for women's rights. Right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there any founding fathers that fought for women's rights? And then it's funny, some of them lived a contradictory life. You can sense where in some of his writings where George Washington didn't think slavery was good for America, but yet he owned slaves. It's like fucking hypocrite, dude. Right. He was just a hypocrite. Now, was there a lot, were the majority of people in charge of creating what we now know as America, were they Christian? Sure. But thankfully, some of those leaders were also non-Christian. In the formation of anything, are you going to be influenced by what your beliefs are, what your thoughts are, what you believe is fact, well, what you know is fact, and what you believe? You're going to be influenced by some of those things. That is why, hey, slavery, we can have that in America because the Bible says so. Women, second-class citizens, we can have that in America because the Bible says so. We can go out here and kill all these natives and force them into Christianity because the Bible tells us so. So the biggest problem I have when people say this country was influenced by Christianity, they like to leave out. They act like it was influenced by modern day versions of Christianity. No, it was influenced by the type of Christianity that was around in the 1700s. See, Christianity today, like, and I think stop with this bullshit conversation over here on Facebook. Modern Christianity says slavery is wrong, so God cannot be endorsing slavery. 1776 Christianity said that slavery was okay. That's the way, because the Bible says so. God gave us the rules right here in Leviticus, right here in Exodus. Slavery fine. So it's not like Christianity has always been the same. So the question then is the people who are asking and saying that America is founded on as a Christian nation or founded on Christianity, what type of Christianity are they trying to, and I say that the people trying to move America to be a Christian nation, I should say. Well, what version of Christianity are they talking about? Say they weren't really fighting for the taxation of the produce, not against slavery. I'm not sure I know what you mean, Sherry, on that one. They were really fighting for the taxation of the produce. Oh, taxation of the product. Are you saying the product, not against slavery? Oh, so I believe what Sherry is talking about is that the people who were fighting against slavery weren't really fighting against slavery, but the level of taxation that was put on slaves. So you're talking about the that's the two-fifth compromise. That is when the Southern slave owners, and this is in the 1800s, so this is well after the so-called founding fathers, the slave owners wanted to have however number of slaves they had, they wanted to be able to vote that many times. But then the Northerners were like, hell no, because that would have given Southern power. The Southerners would then control the federal government because although they had less white Americans, because of the number of slaves that was in the South, that would give them the majority of votes in the United States. But the North was like, hell no, buddy. We're not giving you a vote per every slave unless you let us tax you per every slave. And the South was like, you ain't taxing us per every slave, motherfucker, that'll bankrupt us. And so the compromise was that each slave counted as 2/5 of a person in taxation and voting, which was crazy as fuck. So I think that's what Sherry meant. Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. If that not what you meant, Sherry, then let me know. If that wasn't what you meant. Okay, she said yes. So yeah. I can read between them lines sometimes. Finding more women own businesses in Saudi Arabia than America. Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia. You sure? Saudi Arabia, Brian? You sure Saudi Arabia? You saying the United Arab Emirates or Qatar? I might slide, let that slide, and not look it up. But Saudi Arabia, I'm curious right here. Because I find that one a little hard to believe. Oh shit. Yes. Women in Saudi Arabia own more businesses than women in America, particularly in terms of percentage of entrepreneurs and percentage of small and medium-sized enterprises they own. In 2025, studies found that Saudi Arabia ranked second globally for percentage of women entrepreneurs, while the U.S. ranked much lower in some analysis. Furthermore, women own about 45% of the kingdom's small business enterprises as of 2023, compared to 35% of U.S. employer firms. Huh. Shit, I just learned something new today. I was today years old when I learned this. Saudi Arabia, boy, Saudi Arabia done changed a lot since I've been there. I ain't been to Saudi Arabia since what, 93, 92, 93. Saudi Arabia done changed. That's interesting. The main women that I was talking about that leave because of Sharia law, uh, those were women that was coming out of Iran that I knew more about. Now and then there are some who leave in certain areas. You know, you got the Sharia law portion of northern Nigeria that women try to escape from, get into the more coastal Nigeria where they're not under Sharia law. It's a weird thing. You got like communities inside of like England where they try to practice Sharia law, but then so those women would escape, and some of their escapes have to be to a whole nother country. So it's also them running from communities. So it's a little bit, I understand the Saudi Arabia part. That's something good to learn today, but I was kind of meaning more in that vein of people leaving, fleeing religious persecutions from a community level to a national level. Yeah. But it's kind of crazy. You're saying women own, it's funny, they own that. So can women now drive in Saudi Arabia, or are they still forbidden to drive? Oh no, now I'm curious. That's crazy. Oh, women can now legally drive in Saudi Arabia. The ban was lifted in 2018. Hmm. Look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is becoming more secular. I'm curious, what would colonial Christian ideology, 1690 to 1976 look like? That's too big of a gap, Curtis. That's way too big of a gap. For instance, 1619 Christianity in America allows for slavery, allows for indentured servitude. 1976 Christianity doesn't allow for slavery nor indentured servitude, right? I think you see what I'm saying. What was the years again? 1619 allowed for child labor. 1776 doesn't allow child labor. So you got different breaks within the time frame because, as I've said multiple times, religion follows the culture, and as the culture changes, so does the religion change. So though that's too big of a span of time. It's 1619 Christianity. If you were to catch the Holy Spirit, that means you got a demon in you, and you'll be tried as a witch, or or demons need to be exorcised. 1976, you run around the church screaming and hollering, you just got the Holy Ghost. I see you said Charles C. Jones, an elite slave pastor, promoted Christianity to keep. Is that the one who wrote the slave Bible? Oh, you meant between 1619 and 1776? Between that time frame, it wouldn't have been that much of a difference, other than you would have the beginnings of the evangelical movements of people, catching the Holy Spirit. And see, now 1776, during that time frame, so 160 years later, 160, 150 years later, like, ideas of the Holy Spirit have changed. Ideas of certain demons have changed. Now, medicine has taken away from some of the, this person got, headaches, they got a demon. Oh, no, give them some morphine. Give them a little morphine, they'll be all right. So think about the fact that during the Victorian age in England is the same time as the Wild West is going on. So the culture of the Wild West and the mentality of the Wild West, plus the growth of the beginnings of the industrialization of the North was going on at that time frame as well. So science was making headways into some of what was the superstitious thoughts at that time frame. So you're going to get difference. Slavery, though, is still the same. Christianity still supported slavery at that time frame. So you're still going to have that same mindset. They still have the mindset of it is their Christian right to go out and do manifest destiny during both time frames. Prisons is an interesting concept. Prisons initially, prisons in America were actually prisons thought to be places for people to repent of their crimes. Yes, they lost civil rights, but the prison industrial complex that started putting these jokers to work and using them more as servants outside of certain minor government things, that really didn't kick in until the late 1800s, early 1900s. Before that, you might have prisoners helping to build roads, to clear fields, doing more things that were government oriented. It wasn't really until you get into the early 1900s that the prison industrial complex began to utilize people, paying them shit amount of money to go to their families or to repay the debt to a family. And it expanded into more industrious and corporate things beyond just government works. So it evolved in the same way. It's similar to how religion and culture evolved. But it's a good question. It's a good thing to go and do some research on how prisons changed in America from the early settlements till now. Because you think about it, there wasn't a lot of prisons when America was founded. You mostly just went to jail and was in that jail, and they handled it.
Hi, I actually wanted to go over like.
Wait a minute. Wait. Evermore. Wait. Are you over 21?
I am 18. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't come on someone's podcast and just start talking. You should like let them welcome you first. You know,
I'm sorry.
for,
All right.
so for etiquette's sake. All right, you're over 18, so that still makes you legal to talk to me on Facebook. I mean, YouTube. What is this thing? TikTok. So that's fine. I let the 21 thing slide. Are you a believer?
A believer in Christ.
Yeah.
I guess yes.
Okay.
I'm kind of like exploring that religion right now, so.
You're kind of what religion?
Exploring it.
Oh, exploring. Okay. All right. So what are your now? And you see the rules of the show, but now what are your thoughts?
I actually wanted to talk about the 4 pillars of what a prison, of what it should have been. I can pull that up real quick. The 4 pillars that make a prison are retribution, deterrence, incapacitation, and rehabilitation. There's only one pillar that I disagree with most, and that is retribution.
Okay, wait a minute. One of those pillars, say the pillars again. Slowly.
Retribution,
Okay.
deterrence, incapacitation.
Incapacitation, what is that? I think I know what it is, but I want to be clear.
I'm sorry?
I think I know what it is, but I want to be clear.
What pillar in exactly?
Incapacitation.
The physical removal of offenders from society to prevent them from committing crimes while incarcerated.
That's what I thought it was, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay, go ahead.
So the one thing that I disagree with most is retribution. I support rehabilitation because it actually deters the person from committing a crime. It also transforms the person like internally. I think that's like a great idea, and I think that's heavily disregarded now in a lot of prison systems, even in juvenile detention centers. The incapacitation, physical removal of offenders from society to prevent them from committing crimes while incarcerated. Sometimes people are just too dangerous to be in society. Sometimes they just keep going, and they don't change. And so that's one thing that I only believe with incapacitation. So oh my gosh, it's a struggle word for me. I'm sorry.
Hey, it's a new word for me. So, but you saying that you don't agree with the retribution part?
I disagree with retribution because punishing someone just in a sense of justice for another person is kind of like playing yourself as like a false god.
Well, why not? I mean, so like the Bible says that if you were to kill someone's goat, kill someone's oxen, then you're to give them your oxen until you can replace their oxen, or they can make enough money to replace their oxen, right?
Right, but it's also that we can't really force them to give the ox, correct? Unless we actually like provide the ox, like.
Well, the Bible says that you should. So many people take the eye for an eye to mean that you damage the other person in the same way they damaged you, but really, it's the whole thing is a statement of it is your responsibility to take care of what that person lost because of what you did.
Yeah, but sometimes people don't want to take up that responsibility.
But
so that's where retribution kind of kicks in, and it's like, do not sentence someone just solely for that. I believe just these 3 pillars are solid enough.
Okay, so you're saying don't sentence someone just for that?
Just for retribution entirely. I think you should sentence someone to rehabilitate or incapacitate and deter from like other people committing future crimes and even them committing.
But you're not just putting a person. You said these are the 4 pillars, so these pillars are all to work together. So anytime you have a system that's based on what, like when I was in the Marine Corps, we had 3 pillars of leadership. No one pillar stands by itself. They all have to work together, right? So you have honor, courage, and commitment. You can't just be honorable. You have to also have courage, and you also have to have commitment in order for you to be a leader in the Marine Corps. So in order for prison to work, so when they wrote this with this idea, it's for all of them to work together, right? So when you said somebody shouldn't be sent just for the cause of retribution, they're not. They're being sent because of the other mitigating facts, not facts, but the other pillars of retention inside the prison, keeping them away from other people. I'm not going to try to pronounce that word. That's something. That's the pillar. Incapacitation. I'm not. Yeah, that word. But they're put in prison because they are a danger to society. They're put in prison for rehabilitation, and they're put in prison for, what was the other one?
Okay. What is your general knowledge of rehabilitation now in prisons?
Oh, we don't rehabilitate no damn body in prison.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Why are we holding only retribution really now?
No. If you got a serial killer, that person needs to be, they're also being held because they're a danger to society. If you got a rapist, they're going there because they are a danger to society. And the other pill, I think, is punishment. So they need to be punished.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't think a person who raped somebody should not be put in prison?
I believe that they should be put in prison.
Okay.
For the sake of just removal of from them from society. And then there's deterrence where we don't want other people to do the same thing that they did.
Right. We want to let you know.
It's going to be very tough with this one. I'm not very sure on how that would really go.
Well, some of the ideas of rehabilitation is the fact that if you steal this person's car, then you got to go to jail, and hopefully, since you went to jail and you lost your freedoms, and you had to do whatever things they force you to do in prison that are not illegal, whatever things they force you to do, that when you get out, you have been rehabilitated by the fact that you lost your freedom, which that don't work most of the time.
Yeah. So then we follow up to 2 pillars, really: deterrence and incapacitate. Incapacitate.
Right. But one of the biggest problems of why people go in and out of prison is because once you have a criminal record, and I understand you want to know a person's criminal record to protect your company or protect civilians. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it does so much damage that the person is left without opportunity, right?
Yeah, you're correct. It becomes manifestation at that point. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wish, the prison system would actually emphasize more on rehabilitation.
But even if you did, let me ask you a question. I know you're 18, but even being 18, you should be able to understand this. Let's say you owned a store, a convenience store, right? Make it simple. You own a convenience store. Somebody comes in, they say they want to get hired, they want to work for you. You ask them, have they ever been to jail? Or you do a background check and you see that they went to jail for larceny, right?
Yeah.
Even, are you going to believe that that person is being rehabilitated, or are you going to be like, hell no, I ain't hiring you?
I would actually question them rather than jumping to a conclusion where it's like, have you done any services to rectify what you've done? Have you done any services that you could do good in and, make more good than the bad that you have done? Mm-hmm. I believe that your origins or your background, because a lot of crimes are committed by the environment,
that's the biggest driver.
Yeah. And so I believe your origins are not your identity. Your choices are. So your choices, they choose, they kind of like, they guide you to find who you are. And I think majority of criminals don't really know, or people who are convicted of a crime, they don't really know what's going on. They have like this internal strife. You know, like I really, rehabilitation was more effective.
You know, I do want to stay with the subject that we're talking about, but I want to say something before I forget.
Yeah.
You're different. Okay. You're different. And I know I'm 54, you're 18, so I'm gonna talk to you like you, because you're younger than my son, but I'm gonna talk to you like my son, like you were my son.
Yeah.
I need you to hold on to that. Hold on to that optimism. Hold on to that openness.
Yeah.
Because you're going to face a lot in life that could destroy your optimism. You may run into the next 20 people who all come out of prison and disappoint the hell out of you. But there are those who do come out of prison and they want to change their life. They went through a change. It made a difference. Don't become pessimistic.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just don't want you to.
I think disappointment only happens if you invest too much. If you expect someone to change after prison, if the government and the prison systems are the way it still is, you know, like there's no actual change in the government or like the prison systems. You know, from like decades ago, there's not really much of a change other than COVID precautions. And I honestly think that don't expect people to want to change. I don't hold people to that expectation. But if they want a job from me, if I become an employer, I would ask them, you know, like, have they done anything to rectify their mistakes?
Yeah.
And has it been prolonged over time?
Now, you know that you're going to have to start your own company to be able to hold that type of policy, or find the very few companies that would hold that type of policy, because most companies are going to say no.
I could help with like campaigns. I could try to advocate for a lot of people if I could. I'm in a political science major. I'm majoring in political science, but I'm taking a sociology course on social problems, so I kind of love talking about this.
That's good. And maybe you should start a podcast as well. I don't know if you already got one.
We already have too many podcasters who do really bad stuff. I don't think I should. I think it's generalized with podcasters that do pretty bad stuff, so I don't want to really be associated with that.
Yeah, but you got to break, if you want. Okay, so you got to break the narrative, and that's the thing. That's where you're headed, no matter which direction you go. You want to break the narrative of how companies deal with people who are coming out of prison, and really investigate and see if the person has been rehabilitated, and even help them to continue their rehabilitation. That's a massive paradigm that you would have to break. You want to break you want to change the laws and how the law treats prisoners. That's another massive paradigm you have to break. So breaking podcast paradigms, that's easier. By becoming one of the most popular advocates for prison rehabilitation, you can do more to break the paradigm in today's world, how things function today, by doing that. Because the road that you're talking about is a harder road to go.
Yeah. And I'm completely down for it. I love pushing myself, and I think the best thing in education is not discipline and hard work, it's obsession and pure passion. You know, like nothing beats a passionate person who genuinely loves to do what they do.
True.
And so I wanted to go over some solutions. I think crimes are mostly committed out of poverty. You know, like there's some crimes where you're manipulated into doing this, even if it's like indirectly. You can talk about corporate crime. You know, And then there's occupational crime. Let's see. I think I got my notes mixed up a little bit. I'm sorry. Corporate crime is committed by individuals within context of work profession. So like businesses will kind of like manipulate the employee to commit the crime for them. And it's usually just for work or just a company benefit.
Wait. It's funny you said that because you got to understand, I got some interesting people on my podcast, right? So on YouTube, earlier Dalios was like, I would ask them how can they apply their crime? I would ask them, how can you apply your act of crime to my business?
Yeah, I think that sounds very realistic.
Yeah, like I said, they, being sarcastic. I'm sure that Darius is being sarcastic in that one. But I'm sorry, continue.
Crimes are usually committed because they're desperate for like money. It's always kind of like the lower class or middle class versus the upper class, in my opinion.
No, that's not your opinion. That's statistical facts.
I guess you're right, yeah. But it's also my opinion too. It is a fact and also my opinion. So I will, let's see if I can find that in my notes.
See, this young man got notes. Why can't these Christians, when we have debates, have notes instead of just spouting bullshit?
Let's see. Most countries organize justice systems. Some countries actually do not have justice systems. So that's why I emphasize most countries. It's just not all of them have justice systems, which I find very depressing and sad. Adult males make up the largest category of crime suspects. There's kind of like that gender and that adult victimization there, kind of like people kind of stereotype males to commit more crimes, and it's generally held to, I guess, somewhat true of a standard. We can go into actual family problems and social issues, and this is kind of like revolving around patriarchy, which I won't really get into because that's off topic. I think that a lot of people are stereotyped to do this because it's because of actual social issues in like family. I'll get into family problems a little bit later, but I actually wanted to come up with like solutions for solving the root issue of why people commit crimes when it comes to monetary or environment. And so number one was advocating and teaching people to understand crimes and social control. Number two was local crime fighting initiatives, like technology. There might be drones, metal detectors, biometric surveillance, more common usage of like Amber Alerts, social media, facial recognition, like that. That definitely helps with cybercrime specifically too. And then youth programs, 100% youth programs. Crimes that are committed by minors, they are often like peer pressured, or they feel obligated to do it because of their environment. Which goes to say it's just being pressured. They're just being pressured. Community programs. I love the idea of community programs. I think it really helps with like solving these crimes. And quite frankly, I come from Virginia. I think majority of like the stuff that is being discussed is not really leaning towards much of it when it comes to like governor elections, because like they had like this debate recently. But that's off topic. I'm sorry. Rethinking law enforcement, overt differential law enforcement, and then we can educate people on police officer biases, cultural and structural factors of differential law enforcement. there's kind of like that, where there's like the
Mhm.
racial injustice there. And then understanding the inequalities in society, how they all benefit organizations and corporations that are evil. Yeah.
Now, everything you said earlier sounds nice and pretty. Nice and pretty.
Yeah. Mhm.
The last one that you said, define that more.
I believe that the government is consisted of two things. That the structure of a government, which is organizations and health, how they provide for people, and also how they control the people. That's what governments generally are. I guess in America they give freedoms, but I guess our president is. I'm not going to get political there. Let's see.
Okay, so
Understanding the inequalities in society. There's like a lot of racial injustice, sexism. Yeah.
okay,
Gender. Yeah.
take that thought, apply it to the primary driver of crime.
Mhm.
What's the primary driver of crime?
Well, I'll give a scenario. An Asian driver
No.
who is
That's
sorry.
no. What's the
Okay.
we already established it earlier. What's the primary driver of crime?
Monetary issues.
Right. Economic disparities, right?
Mhm.
Poverty.
Yeah.
Inequality. So we talked about the inequality. If you truly want to, all those other things are great things to have in support of changing the changing the gap in economics, minimizing. You're never going to get rid of poverty, but minimizing poverty will allow for all those other things to have any effect whatsoever. Because without minimizing poverty, those effects are not going to really make a difference. The other things you talk about, they're not going to really make that much of a difference. Right.
And that goes to actual family problems. My strategy for action for family problems is maximize employment and earnings, offer job training, employment assistance, and flexible workplace policies. I think all of these social issues connect to each other, and they play a role in how the society we live in is perceived. Like there's so many things all at once, but they're all connected to each other. We kind of the root, the starting point is actually to solve family problems, or at least help with them.
Okay, you say solve family problems.
Or not. No,
But-
sorry, I meant help with family problems because family problems will always exist.
Okay, like when you say help with family problems, and for everybody who's listening, I want this young man to be motivated to make some changes. He's 18, he's got plenty of damn time to do it. So I know we're off topic here, but this to me is very important because having people who are 18 and be this passionate about something, it means a lot to the movement of how this country could actually maybe one day become great. It ain't never been great, but how it can become great. So for anybody who got problems with that, I don't really give a damn right now. Now, sorry, I had to make that little statement real quick. If you think about it, I hear you with solving, helping with family problems, but most family problems center around finances when we're looking at poverty, families that are in poverty, and that's where the majority of the crime is. So
that was actually perfect timing. I was going to lead with strengthening family during and after divorce. Monetary issues tend to stem from like divorce, right? Who gets the house, or who pays child support, or like who helps with child support, essentially. I say increase divorce education programs. I say this, and I want this to be taught to adults and growing adults, people who experience their family being divorced. And then there's increase in divorce mediation programs.
Okay,
so kind of
you're
help guide
like,
divorces or
yeah.
even solve divorces. You know, like what is a more ethical way of
Evermore.
solving a divorce
Evermore.
or even preventing a divorce?
Evermore. Evermore. Evermore.
Yep.
That is more of a upper middle class, rich problem.
Yeah.
The percentage of impoverished families that are of a married couple is only 4.6%.
Mm-hmm.
So by putting emphasis on what happens with divorce and so on and so forth is minimal impact, because most of those impoverished families are not married. There's no married couple in there. You have for overwhelming majority are going to be single mothers, and you have some single fathers, and the single fatherhood is growing, even in the impoverished areas as well. So divorce is not a major mover dealing with that, because they were never married in the first place. I would start with the disparity in education in impoverished areas.
Yep, you're correct. That's kind of like along the lines of my other part, where increasing more education on certain subjects. And I was actually going to finalize that with increased child support payment programs, like help people kind of like understand what child support is, help people understand like how they can help their child, and also establish a boundary with their ex spouse.
You're going to get a lot of pushback on child support. And I think one of the things is, and this is where a person in your age having a conversation with a person my age is beneficial. So I grew up in Marietta, Georgia, in the city of Marietta, Georgia. You'd have to be in Marietta. You know how you got a city and then the county still has the incorporated city parts? In the city of Marietta, Georgia, it was like 40% black, 6% white. We didn't have any others when I was growing up there. We had very few. Now, the overwhelming majority of the black people in Marietta were living in poverty. Okay, if they weren't in poverty, they were lower middle class. All right. The biggest driver that was helping after integration, and Marietta integrated before it was forced to, but the biggest driver for those black families that were coming out of poverty into at least the middle class was the fact that Marietta city schools at that time frame weren't so college focused. And it's weird, we was talking about this yesterday on the live. They weren't so college focused. You could come out of high school as an apprentice for electrician, for HVAC, for construction. There were so many, it was pretty much, we had a trade school within the high school, which allowed people to graduate high school and get a job paying more than their parents were making. Which changed the poverty levels in my city to where by the time I graduated high school, it was split by half and half. Half of the black population in Marietta City were impoverished, but half were middle class. So it allowed for the children to do more than just 10% better than the parents, because there was a gateway, there was an opportunity to do that, right? Now that Marietta City Schools have went more to a college theme, you are seeing less of the impoverished kids get out of poverty and just repeat whatever their parents are doing.
Yeah.
So the type of education would make a bigger difference in those impoverished areas.
Yeah. And I believe education is kind of like what contributes to both family problems and social problems, right? We don't really get enough education on certain subjects, how to avoid certain things, and how to like stay away from a certain crowd if they're like trying to pressure you, like trying to learn how to learning how to identify the crowd.
Mhm.
I think that's the hugest struggle that we weren't really taught much of, actually. Yeah.
No, you're not. I mean, like, my cousin who came behind me 1 year after me was the last class in Marietta where they taught personal finances, but they taught it in the ninth grade, which was way too damn early. The level of personal finance that they was teaching was way too early. That's something that should have been taught like 11th to 12th grade year, so that you're getting ready to apply it, so that you can apply it to your life. By the time you get to the 11th, 12th grade, you've forgotten about what you learned in the ninth grade for the most part.
So I ask, is that an elective?
No, it was a class you had to take. We had
okay.
a class called citizenship, and
Yeah.
in that citizenship class, you learn
That's it.
you learn how to balance a checkbook. You learn about assets, liabilities. You create.
Yeah, I actually was taught about that at like 8th grade, and then I completely forgot about them, to be honest. But
Right.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah.
So by the time you get into high school, by the time you graduate, you're not thinking about that. Now you're only going to learn whatever your parents have taught you. And if your parents didn't know anything about finances, then shit, you're not going to know anything about finances, and you're going to do and make the same mistakes that your parents made, which is one of the reasons why they're in their situation of poverty, because they never learned how to save money and invest money, or not live above their means, but they didn't also learn how to make themselves more marketable, you know. So it pretty much was a waste of time to teach us that at that stage. The biggest, and like I said earlier, the biggest driver was the fact that people were graduating with trades. And so, because a lot of impoverished families, college is not a possibility. There's only so many grants, so many scholarships, and most people, they try to stay away from the debt, or they can't even get a student loan. So
Yeah.
then the college avenue is not there. So the only thing that's left for them is to go work in the same damn factory that their parents is working in, or to, work in whatever low level job, and which breeds crime.
Yeah.
So,
I believe financial aid is kind of like all over the place, and sometimes it does have but a lot of the times it does have a lot of ethical issues.
mhm.
How good would you say technology there is? How good is it? Do you think it typically works pretty well, or
Wait a minute, I'm not understanding what you mean. How good is technology where?
where you were growing up? I think it was Georgia, correct?
Right.
Yeah. How good is technology in Georgia for Marietta, correct?
Well, technology is great in Marietta. It's a suburb of Atlanta.
Okay. So I actually wanted to introduce a lot of things because people don't really know much about financial aid. Like, honestly, my friend who's like about the same age as me, a little bit older, maybe about like 2 years older than me, he didn't even know about financial aid. And then he was like saving up his money to go to college. And I was like, hey man, there's financial aid. They help pay for your tuition if you just want to go into a community college. And community college, they often have transfer programs where you can do 2 years at the community college, get your associates, and then go transfer to a university and get your bachelor's there. And also, you can also like, what's another thing I can mention?
Okay, but more than half of the families who are impoverished, those kids are not going to college.
Okay.
Even with knowledge of financial aids and all these sorts of things, they're not going to college. And then everybody is not cut out to go to college. Like my son he was not ready to go to college. He didn't want to go to college. He didn't feel like going to college. And his personality at the time, he would have flunked out of college. So there needed to be other avenues. He didn't have those technicals. There were no trade school types of teaching within his school. So he was kind of left with just a high school diploma,
Yeah.
So after,
so when it comes to college, there's certain things of college, right? You could be seasonally going to college or going part time or even full time. I think he could have experimented with seasonal first. Not at university, but maybe community college. You know, get a feel of community college first.
Wouldn't have mattered. Wouldn't have mattered.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, he had zero interest in college at all. So of course, being the amazing father that I am, I let him flounder a little bit. Go work this job, work that job. I let him get frustrated with the fact that this is all your high school diploma will get you. Now, the cheapest and best way of learning a trade is to go to the military, right? So I gave him the option. You can either go to a trade school or you can go to the military. In the military, at least they'll pay you to get a trade. And then if you have, after you mature some, you want to go to college, you will have your GI Bill and other things that'll help you go to school. Now, I ain't gonna lie, I made sure he went to a branch of service and had a job that would never put him nowhere near combat. I already did it. Ain't time. I don't want him doing it. So now he's gaining that experience, you know. And when he leaves the military in about a year and a half, he will know he can go work for any airline working on their engines and make more money than I could have dreamed of when I was his age.
Wow,
so
that's a great thing that you did that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Now,
I think you know, trial and error is the greatest teacher of all time. I think sorrow and happiness are kind of like what makes us who we are, and I think you let him decide who he wants to be, and that's a great thing that you've done.
Now, here's the kicker though. If there were trade schools, if there was trade school type education when he was in high school, he would have discovered this type of thing long before he went into the military. Because impoverished families are not all going to go to the military either, even though that is the escape for a lot of people who come out of impoverished families. They're like, I'm gonna go to the military. Because like Kelly just put up here a minute ago, if you go to community college or if you go to a 4-year university, you're still most likely going to have to get a student loan. So you're going to be saddled with debt. If you transfer from a community college to a 4-year college, some of your credits may not transfer. So you got to repeat some classes, which is going to incur even more debt. And then the saddest part is that we got people, and I saw this when I graduated high school. I graduated high school. I was working at a grocery store pushing buggies in high school. And right alongside of me was a dude with a 4-year architecture degree who could not find a job. And then when he finally found a job, he had so much debt that he was going to be in debt for the next 10 years.
Yeah. I honestly believe that supports come into factor when it comes to that kind of debt, right? Sometimes your FAFSA or financial aid supports, they won't even register sometimes. That's kind of like what happened 1 year for like me, actually. It was actually this year. And I actually had to ask my foster dad, I was in the foster care system, to help me pay for it. And I honestly believe he's more of like a father figure to me because he let me decide what I wanted to do in life. Generally, just like when I came into his home, he let me do whatever and let the natural consequences teach me. And I think you do that as well. And I really believe that is the amazing thing fathers can do. And mothers can do too.
Yeah, I believe in consequences. That was probably, I've said it like 50, 11 times on podcast. Probably the third word out of all my children's mouth was consequences, because I wanted them to understand that from birth, that everything has consequences to it. But to the subject matter, in order to lower the crime rate, the government has to recognize where it has created impoverished communities, where it has established programs to keep the prison industrial complex going, and to remove those roadblocks that the government has put in place. right? So first you got to reorganize that. You have to reorganize that, and and then you have to change our educational system. It's not going to happen overnight, but what you're doing is trying to set this up so that the children who are born today will not face the same challenges that you face, that I face, and other generations have faced.
Yeah. And I truly believe that this is a great thing to start off with. About actually 12 hours ago at midnight. Oh my gosh, or maybe even 2 a.m. I created a cover letter for the delegate for Virginia, basically, and it was in District 12, Virginia's House delegates, and I actually wanted. So my goal is to apply for an internship with Mark Warner. Mark Warner is a senator for Virginia, and he's very, very good at what he does. I honestly love your energy. I like your feedback. I'll take that into a lot of consideration. Thank you.
My pleasure. But I got to get back to the original subject matter.
I'm so sorry. We've been on a whole tangent.
No, that's why I made the disclaimer that we're gonna walk down this road for a minute, because you have an insightfulness, you have a passion for this. I would love to see you, especially 20 years from now. I want to see whoever Ben Moore's real name is, Even Moore's real name, either in politics or have made so much money that you have enough influence to make changes in our educational system, to make changes in the prison system, because we imprison more people in this country than any other country, right? And our crime rates, they always talk about other people's crime rate. Our crime rate is ridiculous for a country that has so much abundance.
And I will also say about UCR, let's see, Uniform Crime Report. Something I kind of studied on a little bit. I'm not too educated on it too much, but let's see. Going back to my notes. Let's see. Okay, officers like sheriffs or police departments, they voluntarily report to the FBI the amount of reported crimes and arrests.
Mm-hmm.
That means crime statistics for the FBI, they're generally just they can be on a spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And sometimes they even go undocumented.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that they will. There was a sheriff office. There was a sheriff in part of the county that I grew up in, and he got fired because he would only report crimes that was done by minorities and never reported crimes that were done by white people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe that crime rates might be exaggerated due to external and policing motives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
External pressures and policing motives. Yeah.
And he was doing that. And also, the other thing he did, if a crime was committed by a white person and he reported it, he would put the person down as Latino or Hispanic. Well, we didn't use Latino back then, but Hispanic or Black, so that he can get more state and federal dollars. It was crazy.
So, I will also say that one way around this is that the offender that committed the crime has voluntarily, meaning that they did it out of free will and had the intent to commit it, they have no valid excuse. So that means if you were blackmailed to committing a crime from a organized crime group,
mm-hmm.
you may not be charged for that crime, and you could be upheld.
Mm-hmm.
You just would not be a crash dummy for that organized crime. You would be helping break down that crime if you gave like a hint, like, hey, you're being trafficked.
Well,
You know?
that's done. That is done if the DA sees that they have an opportunity. If the DA doesn't see that they have an opportunity, then they don't do it. But if they have an opportunity to maybe get something, they'll do it.
Yeah.
But I got to get back to the subject. I appreciate you. I'd love to have you up anytime.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right. Appreciate it, more. Bye.
Bye.
How is it that that young man is more concise than some of the adults that I have? He's 18. I don't consider 18 being an adult. But that young man is more of an adult than some of the people that we deal with on a daily basis here. And what giving your life to Jesus is not going to do anything towards changing the crime rates in America. Because the overwhelming majority, like Brian said, the US houses a quarter of the world's population. And the overwhelming majority of that quarter say that they believe in Jesus. Y'all know I don't give that dude much time or attention because that's all I know. That's all he wants. But yeah, that was just a dumbass statement. Sorry, that was a dumbass statement. You know, based on Christian beliefs, it is atheists who are out here wanting to do every sin and commit every crime, but yet the overwhelming majority of prisoners in America claim to be Christian, right? And then they'll claim to be Christian, get out of jail, face through some hardships, and wind up back in jail. But we do need to stop this pipeline in the prison. We need to stop this revolving door in our prison system. And most of that is because of the way this country is set up when it comes to crime and when it comes to prisoners. I do think that if you committed something like pedophilia, your crimes need to be known. But we have to figure out a way that you're not secondarily punished once you get out. Like, I think it's wrong that if you have a felon, you can't start a business. Like, a lot of people don't know that, right? That if you have a felony, you can't get a passport unless you have to go through this whole process to be able to get a passport. But most of the time you can't get one. And then the messed up part is that you can't start a business. I personally know a guy in my hometown. He has always shown brilliance for business, but he got caught up in crime. Now he owns but not owns a transportation company, a couple of restaurants, some houses, things of that nature. But none of it is in his name because he can't put it in his name because he has felons, right? Now, Sage says that I'm a felon and I have a business. So I thank you for getting there before me. There are certain situations that will allow for you to be able to start a business and put it in your name as a felon. But depending upon the state, certain states allow for certain felons to put businesses in their name, right? So let's say if you was a drug dealer in Georgia, if you were just petty drugs, street corner dude, it's not that hard to get a business in your name. But if you were a major supplier, like the dude that I'm talking about, the state continuously rejects his applications to be able to put a business in his name, which is why his companies are all in his mom's name, right? It's kind of reverse when, poor families would fuck up the credit of their children before they grown because they put all kinds of shit in their name. So there has to be a way to change. We have to be able to change that. And I say it's not impossible to get a business in your name. It's just difficult. And it's more difficult than it should be. Because even though you served your time, the thinking is if we let criminals put businesses in their names, then all they're going to do is do criminal activities with that business. And to be honest, the resources to watch over businesses in most states are very minimal. So they just say, well, to hell with it. We just ain't gonna let them have it. Certain types of businesses are easier for ex-cons to establish. You know, like a cleaning service, a restaurant, those types of businesses, easier to establish, but those are some of the most difficult industries to be in, right? Some of the most difficult industries to be in. You want to open a gym, you're an ex-con, you can probably open a gym. It's a difficult ass business to get started. It's a difficult business to be profitable in a gym. All right, so it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. Now, in that one, it goes against Christianity. To bring it back home, it goes against Christianity. Didn't Jesus say you're to forgive your brother 7 times 70? Our government does not. Our culture does not. You commit a crime. First of all, you're not innocent until proven guilty in this country, for the most part. You're guilty until you prove that you are innocent, is how the reality of it is. But forgiveness doesn't happen. It really just doesn't happen in this country. Now, like I said, some things need to be. If you were a pedo, you cannot go and become a school teacher. I'm sorry. I don't care if they give you medication. I don't care if you go through you have the best psychologist in the world. Your ass is not going to be you're not working in the school system, period. Completely. Yeah, and I know he was said about retribution, but Isaac said felons in a lot of states are completely disenfranchised until they completely pay all penalties and restitution. Sometimes the restitution never gets paid because the person can't afford it. Therefore, they never get their rights back. And think about that. You get out of prison, you can't really find a job. The job that you find pays for a basic lifestyle, the most basic lifestyle. And then if you got penalties and retribution to pay, you're never going to pay it. So you're not going to get your right to vote. You're not going to get your passport. You know, you're stuck. You're stuck like Chuck. And when you want to get rid of, and I actually known people who were trying to pay their restitutions back. They couldn't with their regular job and still maintain their some level of a lifestyle. And so they say, well, I'm going to do this crime a little bit more. I'm going to go back to doing this crime because I know I made quick money with this crime, and I can use that quick money with this crime to pay my restitution. But then they get caught, they go back into jail, now everything's got higher, and it's a whole cycle that goes over and over again, right?
Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Are you old, Asta? Are you over 20? Are you over 21?
Yeah.
Okay. And based on your name, I will make the assumption, but correct me if I'm wrong. You believe in Allah.
Yes.
Okay. Then you know this is what we're talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you like to,
All right.
I want to talk with you.
Okay.
Okay. So first, I want to talk from my own, perspective. That why I am a Muslim. Then I want, talk about it more if you would like to, if you would like to hear about it.
Well, our subject matter was America founded on Christianity to be a Christian nation? And then as you see in the rules, belief and testimony is not proof of anything.
Okay, if you just don't like it, I'm down, I'm gonna go. And thank you for your time.
Okay, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Yeah. This is not a channel where people are come here and you get to proselytize your religion. That doesn't matter. If we were talking about, if the subject matter deals with, is Christianity better than Islam, or is Islam better than Christianity? We could talk about that. Might be a good subject matter one day, but I don't know as much about Islam to be able to talk about it in too detail. But that's not the audience. So, but I appreciate you listening or being here, but there's no conversions that are going on this channel. We're not doing any of that. We're not doing it. I was trying to keep up with some of your comments. Say he needs to go to the preacher's corner. Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. This is not that place. Now I saw earlier somebody said the Treaty of Tripoli. Yes, that was the thing I was talking about with John Adams when he specifically said that America is not a Christian country. Now this is John Adams, second president under the United States Constitution, stating definitively that America is not a Christian country. This is at the time frame of Washington and Hamilton and Thomas and Madison and Franklin. This is at the time frame when all those dudes, those founding fathers were alive and well, that the consensus was there for what America was in 1776, 80, 1780, and I think he became president. Was he president? John Adams was president, I think 1780 or 1784, had to be in one of those time frames he became president. So this is close to the time frame. This is not 100 years later, 50 years later, a president making that statement. This is right at the time frame. This is why when people say, oh, but our money says in God we trust, that's something that was put on the money, I think like in the 1950s is when in God we trust was put on the money. That is not something that the founding fathers would have put on the money, because they didn't. When the Federal Reserve was created, in God we trust was not put on the money. That was a 1950s development. Brian says 1957. Right, so that was a 1957 development. So the people in the 1957s cannot dictate what the founding fathers had established this country as. That is in the 1957s trying to infuse God into this country, right? And trying to infuse, more specifically, the Christian God into this country. Oh, like I said, God is not a Christian also. Exactly, right? Not even a Christian. What time is it? Hold on, okay, I gotta check my time. The pain's coming a little early. Breakfast was light, so the pain's coming a little bit early. French, are you
construct?
How you doing? Are you over 21?
I'm 27 years old.
Okay, and are you a believer?
That this country was founded on Christianity? No.
Well, no, are you a believer in Christianity first?
No, I don't believe in any gods. I'm atheist.
Okay, cool. And so your thoughts on, was this country founded on Christianity or to be a Christian nation?
No, I don't believe that it was founded on Christianity. There was a bunch of Christians that were in that mix of people that were in this country originally. But yeah, they have their impact because, one, they have the numbers, but it's not founded on Christianity. And we can see that in how we run our country.
True. The country is ran based on secularism, right? What would you say is proof that America is not founded on Christianity?
The First Amendment, where it's saying, hey, you have the freedom of your own religion.
Mm-hmm.
So if it was ran on Christianity, I feel like there'd be more of that. Hey, we're going to run as a Christian. We're going to have people that are heads of the Christian church with that in mind.
Right.
Yes, they do.
No, I was just going to say, and that would be a violation of Article 6 of the Constitution, where there cannot be a religious test for someone to run for office.
Article 6 of the Constitution.
Yep. Just giving you some
I'm
more.
researching because I do not know.
Yeah. Just giving you some more ammunition.
Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution establishes the supremacy of the Constitution, meaning federal laws and treaties are the supreme law of the land. It also makes the U.S. responsible for debts incurred under the Articles of No religious trust test. No religious test can be required as a qualification. Yeah, so that's also something that seems like the Constitution, which is one of the most pivotal parts of the founding of the United States of America.
And do you know about the Tripoli Treaty?
Tripoli Treaty? No.
Well, Treaty of Tripoli. I said that so backwards.
Let me search this up.
So type in like Treaty of Tripoli.
Tripoli is United States of America and the Bay and subjects of Tripoli and Barbary. It was treated in 1903. It was the first treaty between Libya to secure commercial shipping rights. Yeah, shipping rights between other countries. So
I know, but there's the if you have put in there Treaty of Tripoli, John Adams' statement about America not being a Christian nation. It'll narrow it down. I mean, the treaty is, it's a long treaty. It got a lot of words, but there's a part in the treaty where John Adams specifically says America is not a Christian nation.
Okay.
So you can add that to it. You can add Thomas Jefferson's speech where he said that the Constitution provides a wall between the separation of church and state, which is where we get that quote from.
So it seems like the people that are very pivotal into making this country, the founding fathers, were very clear in what they're trying to communicate, saying that this is not a Christian nation. It is a nation where it's secular, and it seems like that's where we're at now. Where yes, there are people in the country that are Christian, and they would have their vision for what they would like, but overall, that is not a Christian nation. It is a nation. Amalgamation of so many different religions, so many different ways of running the country, where it doesn't make sense to say, hey, this is a Christian nation.
Exactly. And one of the earlier arguments that I also made was the fact that in trying to get the Constitution passed, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay wrote a series of papers, which were the series of essays, which are called the Federalist Papers. And in those Federalist Papers, they never mentioned God, and they specifically talked about the government being a secular government, that there shouldn't be any. And this is where the religious test was pushed by Madison in I think it was like Federalist Paper number 10, or no, he warned against having, if you allow for religious tests, then the government can be seized upon by whatever the majority of the religion is, the majority religion. Yeah. So the Federalist Papers also support, which were for the Constitution, support the United States not being a Christian nation. The Anti-Federalists, if you read their essays, they were pushing for, and these were people who were against the Constitution, they were pushing for a Constitution to be written that was making the United States into a Christian nation.
Yeah, that's probably part of their coalition, because they wanted to have a weaker central government, so they probably wanted it more to return to the Confederate, like the Confederate States of America. What was it called? The Articles of Confederation. More power was in the states. So, and then I'm guessing part of their support group was people that are saying, hey, this is a route for them to make it a Christian nation.
Yeah,
that's my guess, but I'm not familiar with what the anti-federalist.
No, you're rolling in the right pathway. That was part of their agenda. They liked the Articles of Confederation because of the very thing you said. there was no centralized. The centralized federal government was weak as shit. With under the Articles of Confederation, you elected a new president every year, and you didn't have all the branches. So, and there was no federal, the government didn't have a bank. So the states had all the power. And eventually the states would have broken off into separate countries if the Articles of Confederation would have maintained themselves. But this is about as powerful as the League of Nations or the UN. You know, it doesn't have any power at all for the most part.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm guessing that's why they probably phased out. I don't know if they did. I'm not too familiar with what their side was. How long?
Well, people like Hamilton saw that the Articles of Confederation, he had the foresight to see that it would not establish a true nation, right? And that America would have broken off into, at that time frame, 13 different nations. So that's why he fought so hard for the Federalists, for the Constitution. That's why it was like him, Madison, Jefferson, Washington, John Jay, Franklin. Those guys was really big on the Constitution that we have today, because they knew the Articles of Confederation, that it would make us so divided that a country like England could come back, or a country like Spain could come and conquer those independent states.
Okay. Because yeah, I'm not too familiar with revolutionary happenings. I know a bit about, I think it's Thomas Paine, or not Thomas Paine, but he was writing some of the like not propaganda, but like stuff from Brown, and how like, hey, how he's trying to like motivate people to join the cause. But that's pretty much all I know. I know a little bit more about like the Civil War, because I feel that to me the Civil War seems more like the actual revolution. But
yeah, Thomas Paine was, he's considered part of the Enlightenment movement at that time frame. And yeah, his ideas was pushing more of the constitutional ideas, pushing for the revolution, the separation from England, and independence of America, and the furtherment of becoming a secular nation. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having this conversation. I feel like it was a very mature conversation, and I hope you have a good day.
Appreciate it. You have a great day too. Bye. Damn, his name was French. I should have been like, au revoir. Au revoir, mon ami. In February 29th, 1892, the Supreme Court declared in the Holy Trinity versus the United States that the historical record of America overwhelmingly demonstrates that the United States is a Christian nation. Yeah, they're wrong. And in 1892, they were wrong. You see 12 justices deciding, or 7 justices, I forgot how many justices are on the Supreme Court? 7, right? Yeah, 7 justices deciding that, oh, it is a Christian nation. It leaves a lot to be desired, because that seems more like they're ignoring what was written in favor of a political point. But I need to look that up. What was that? Supreme Court, 1892. Let's see. Let me skim through this real quick. In 1892, case Church of the Holy Trinity versus United States, Supreme Court used the phrase "a Christian nation" as part of the legal reasoning to interpret a statute, but the statement was considered dicta, meaning it was not a binding legal holding. The court argued that historical evidence, like laws on Sabbath observance and religious customs, indicated the U.S. was Christian in a cultural and historical sense, not that it had an official religion. This statement has been cited over the years to support various arguments, but legal scholars note that it was not the basis for the ruling and doesn't establish a legal precedence that the U.S. is a Christian nation. See, I knew there had to be more to it. The Supreme Court case involved a law that prohibited the importation of foreign laborers under contract. The church had contracted with a man in England to serve as its rector, Christian ministry. The court ruled in favor of the church, stating that the statute was not intended to apply to a Christian minister. The case involved a law that prohibited importation of foreign laborers under contract. All right, so you couldn't have a foreign contractor. They wanted to bring in a dude from England to be their minister, but that was considered illegal. So the ruling is saying that the Christian minister is not falling under the law that prohibited foreign contractors, because he's not considered a contractor. So that is not a rendering that says that America is a Christian nation. Yeah, that don't work. So it concluded that in light of historical context, the Congress did not intend to make it a crime for a church to import a minister from another country. Yeah, on the surface, that may sound like the Supreme Court is saying America is a Christian nation, but it's just separating ministry from contract labor and allowing for a church to bring in a foreigner. Because you got to, in 1892, even though America was kind of an isolationist country. So yeah, I wouldn't utilize that to declare. You can only declare that if people don't know or don't go and research what that court ruling is. But as soon as you research that court ruling, the idea of the Supreme Court saying that America is a Christian nation kind of falls apart. Why don't they acknowledge the 14 Black presidents of the Continental Congress before George Washington? 14 seems like a high number. I know a couple of them. But that's not going to, because it was under the Articles of Confederation, and America is not. The United States as we know it is chartered under the Constitution. Not that it shouldn't be recognized, it should be recognized as far as part of our history. It should be recognized as far as part of our history. That should be. That's interesting to me. Let's see. Quick little query here. Nope, I don't want somebody's Facebook. There's a YouTube, but I don't know who Naval Academy History Productions are. Let's see, I don't know who teachinghistory.org is either. So I know John Hanson. I know he was Black. And having a president for 1 year, in most cases, I would say that's terrible. But there have been some presidents I wish would have only served for about 1 year, though. Okay, this is only talking about John Hanson. But it seems like John Hanson wasn't black, according to this article. Seemed like he just had a little black in him. John Hanson, who held the office known as President of the United States under the Congress Assembly from long before the invention of photography. The African American man in the photograph that you saw on a website could not have been this John Hanson. Okay, so this is before photography. The possibility remains that John Hanson may had one or more African ancestors, either known or not known known or not known to his colleagues, or even to himself. John Bruce Kimmer, one of the Hanson biographer, states that Hanson's grandfather and his three brothers immigrated in 1642 from Sweden to the recently formed New Sweden settlement on the Delaware River with newly appointed Governor John Prince. Kimmer points out that one of the Hanson brothers, Andrew, had the same name as Andrew Hanson Freeman, who once worked as a farmhand in New Sweden, landowner and military leadership, Lieutenant Mance King, and owner of a tobacco plant in Skyhill. Whether this Andrew was the same man as John Hanson, great uncle, must be a matter of, I don't know. I've never done a lot of research on John Hanson. I just took it face value. So one could conjecture, therefore, that John Hanson had an African ancestor, as he may have been related to the man described as Freeman. That is a freed black slave, yet the term freeman in this context in the 17th century in New Sweden colony did not indicate a free black slave, as one might assume, according to Gregory B. King of the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, who has researched and written about the New Sweden colony. The freemen, or Friedemann, so-called because they had settled in a country entirely of their own will and might have, okay, yeah, that's going to take a lot more research. But I don't see the 14. I live in Texas. They are pushing Christian religion in schools. Discussing. Yeah, Guitar Dog. I live in Texas too, and I see that bullshit of them trying to put the 10 Commandments inside the schools. I'm gonna have to do more research on it and find some more or less some PhD papers on it, because when I Google how many black presidents were there under the Articles of Confederation, I just get a bunch of YouTubes and blackpast.org and Facebook posts. One Reddit poster is saying it's the 7 black presidents before Obama. I have to do more research on it. 14 presidents before Washington. I know this is a little off subject, but it's a curiosity now. See, I see a bunch of names. It doesn't tell me anything about them as far as their history. And this portrait they got of John Hanson, he just look like a white dude. And see, when you got a portrait, you have to see, is this a portrait that the person set for, or is this a later rendition? Because whether or not a person set for a portrait makes a huge difference. Because, like, I see these portraits of these people, these 14 presidents, and they're all white. That's not 14, though. But it's like the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. First 8 of them. And these are presidents in Congress assembled. These are a bunch of white dudes. I don't know. I have to do more research on that. Did the slave master practice what Jesus taught in the Bible? Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did. He did. One, the fact that he owned slaves, and Jesus was perfectly fine with the ownership of slavery. If you believe the letter, that Jesus spoke to Paul, and if you follow along with what Jesus teaches, Jesus doesn't make any distinctions about not owning slaves. Um, Jesus doesn't change. He says that you're to follow the law, and the law says that you can own slaves and that you can beat your slaves. So yeah. The slave master practice. Yeah, they practice what Jesus taught, and so they sure did. And if you are typing in, but Jesus said, "Love your brother as you love yourself," in that time frame in Hebrew, that time frame in the Hebrew culture, loving your neighbor was other Israelites. Your neighbor was not other foreigners. So Jesus did not issue a punishment for man stealing. I don't even recall Jesus talking about man stealing. Jesus talked about stealing by indicating that the Ten Commandments and condemning by including it in the Ten Commandments and condemning the act of making a den of thieves of a house of prayer. He also spoke of a thief who comes in the night to only kill, steal, and destroy. He contrasts that with, there ain't nothing about Jesus saying anything about man stealing, but slavery in the Bible is not man stealing. It says you go and you buy a slave. And we got plenty of records of Europeans going over and buying slaves, especially from the Dahomey. They bought a bunch of slaves from the Dahomey. So, and most slaves were purchased. Most were purchased. Others were POWs, but most were purchased. The purchased were POWs in a sense, because this was like, so one of the primary drivers in the initial slave trades off the west coast of Africa, they would sell guns to the Dahomey for Wayuda slaves, because the Dahomey were at war with Wayuda, and they would capture them, and after they defeated their armies, and then they would sell them to the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the Spanish, and sell them as slaves. Most of those slaves did go to the Caribbean and to South America, but some did make their way to North America, which would be Mexico, United States, and Canada. So they were still practicing the same type of enslavement that the Bible preaches and teaches, that this God says. What can I read to verify this purchase? Tell you what, go to Google Scholar, and then in Google Scholar, ask the question of, did West African slave traders, did European slave traders purchase slaves from West Africa? I would say Google Scholar, because then you can get PhD papers on it. But let's do it in regular Google. Oh, that says where. I didn't mean for that to say where. That just tells me place. So just in a basic Google, you get, yes, European slave traders purchased captives, often from African rulers and merchants who had captured them through warfare or kidnapping. The traders would then transport these enslaved people across the Atlantic to the Americas, where they were sold for profit to work on plantations and in other forms of labor. Now, I know a lot of people are going to focus on kidnapping, but it says warfare or kidnapping. It is the African rulers who did the warfare or kidnapping, and then the trader bought them from them. So the trader still is purchasing the West African slaves and bringing them to the Americas. The acquisition method, while Europeans brought most captives from Africa, while Europeans bought, not bought most captives from Africa and from African and Arab traders, they also sometimes captured people in their own coastal raids. However, European demand was so high that they largely relied on the existing network of African traders to procure captives, often from the interiors. So you can find some of that information if you go to the National Museum of Liverpool, from the website Slavery and Remembrance. So slaveryandremembrance.org is one of the places you can find and read about that. The Museum of Liverpool, like I said, you can also find it there. And that's just on a basic Google search. Google Scholar, you'll get PhD papers. And most of these PhD papers are PhD students who write these papers in order to get their PhD. You'll have others who wrote papers to be published in certain journals and magazines and things of that nature that are then peer reviewed by other scholars. You got to catch your kids awards program. Your kids are way more important than this live. That's for damn sure. Like in one part of when you go to slavery and remembrance, I didn't even read this part before I'm going to say it out loud, but it looks like it's going to talk about it. It says European and American slavers exchanged goods for people with West African traders along enormous stretches of West and Central Africa, even to Madagascar and Southeastern Africa. But most Africans boarded ships in the six distinct regions of the African coast: Upper Guinea, the Gold Coast, Bight of Benin, Bight of Bafari. I gotta look at what a Bight is. Bight. West Central Africa and Southeastern Africa. During the course of the transatlantic slave trade, nearly half of all African captives were taken from West Central Africa, Congo, and Angola today. But they traded goods for these people. Nothing Coach does suggests he doesn't like white people. Where the hell did that come from? I want to know what made Kevin make that comment. Who said something? What makes you say that? Who said? Somebody said I don't like white people. Oh, I think this is the comment. Do you not like white people? My best friend growing up and in the 1980s was black, and my people did not like, and my people did not like that. But I love this dude to this day. His name is Alvarez. We fished every day, running through the woods together every day, tra la la, with a gun, shooting anything that moved, and ate it too. Rabbit was our favorite thing. Uh, we had beagles. I don't think that there's anything that I've ever said that would indicate that I do not like white people. Simply stating facts about the history of America and the history of Europe does not mean that I hate white people. And let me do the thing. Let me do the thing. One of my best friends is white. Literally, he is. One of my best friends is white. His daughter is my goddaughter. And if something were to happen to them and she came to live with me and my wife, her little spoiled ass is in for a rude awakening because she's spoiled as shit. And you have to understand, 99.9% of the people I know and associate with are associates. There are very few people who reach the friend level with me. Very few. Right as we stand right now, outside of family members, I have 3 friends. One of them is white. So a third of my friendships are white. Oh, oh man. No, I don't hate anybody based on their color. If I don't like you, it's because I don't like you as an individual. That's funny. That's funny. But that is one of the problems that we have in this country today for for people who are claiming that this is a Christian nation, is the fact that there are ongoing attempts right now to erase the negative part, what we consider today the negative part of white Americans' history in this country. I mean, like I was saying yesterday, if you're dealing with a relationship, you got to deal with the root of it and not all the surface bullshit that is created from the root. And as far as the relationship in America of the people in America, part of the problem is that we don't want to deal with the root cause of why this country is in the state that it's in today. Now, America is in a better state today than it's ever been in, but it has a long way to go to actually it has a long way to go to live up to the Constitution, right? And that non-Christian Constitution uh, would say that everybody has freedom. Everybody has the right to vote. Everybody has the right to assemble, has the right to free speech. And where's the now, was that the case in America when it was first started? Hell no, was not the case. It was not the case at all. Because, and I remember we had to learn this, and of course, Schoolhouse Rock was the best way to learn this. So we got to say it somewhat how Schoolhouse Rock said it. The preamble of the Constitution. How it goes, y'all sing it with me in your head. I'm not going to sing though. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for our current and future generations. We the people did not include we the black people, we the Asian people, we the Spanish people, we the women people, We, the people, didn't include them when the Constitution was written. That wasn't the ideals of the founding fathers at that time. There wasn't justice in America at that time frame. There wasn't and we didn't have, so without justice, you do not have you don't have domestic tranquility. There was no common defense because everybody wasn't defended equally, nor was there a promotion of general welfare because everybody didn't have an equal opportunity to see how great they could be or how terrible they could be. And we certainly did not have liberty for that current. And then it says the current and future generation. There was no liberty for the current generations of women and non-white landowning males. Because if you was Irish, if you was Italian, your ass didn't have liberty in America back then. And we are still in the process of securing that for future generations because we are still not there. We still haven't gotten to that point where there is liberty and general welfare and common defense and justice for the current generation of people in the United States. We still have a ways to go. Yeah, y'all remember that Schoolhouse Rock song? Yeah. And Isaac makes a good statement here. Even though the initial part of the Declaration of Independence states that you have God-given rights, the only rights you have are the ones you can defend. Right? That's it. That's it. It's the rights you can defend. Even your right to breathe is a right that you have to be able to defend. But we don't. You don't have that. And this is why I was saying that you can go both positive and negative on the Christian value statement from the video I did on Tuesday. All right. It was Christian values were used to establish the fact that women should not have equal rights as a man, no matter what your skin tone was. All right. It was the ethnocentrism of characters like Jesus who established that there are lower caste of people and that everybody does not sit at the master's table, but some people are dogs underneath the master's tables, only getting the crumbs. When you look at the writings of Paul, which most people follow Paul instead of following Jesus, so you're doing more of Paulinian Christianity or Pauline Christianity. Paul tells Ananias, go back and be a good slave to your master, but master, don't brutalize him. Don't treat him as a slave, treat him as a brother in Christ, but he's still your slave. Tells them to obey your slave master, whether they are good or bad. So America, Christian values were to continue that motif of slavery and how the relationship should be between master and slave, whether you are a Christian, whether both of y'all are Christian or not. And it is actually those Christian values that Pope Nicholas V, when he issued his papal bull concerning West African slaves, is that you are to make them into slaves, but yet you are also to make them into Christians through force. So those Christian values certainly came across with the formation of this country. Yet there were some who was against it to a certain degree, but not enough. In truth, you're right, Kevin. You don't have any rights. You have privileges, right? you anything that you can claim to be a right is truly a privilege that the government that you are under allows you to have. Because the same rights you have in America, you don't have those rights in another country. Right? So you don't have rights. You have privileges that whoever is lording over your region, even if in tribal societies, the only rights you have is whatever the rights the elders, the privileges that the elders and the chief or the king allows for you to have. That's it. And it's up to you to use those privileges to the best of your ability. Best to use them to the best of your ability. Otherwise, what was this one? What are your views on pantheism? I find more knowledge in my garden than in any church. What's his name? What's the name? What's the name? I can't think of the damn name. So pantheism is the belief that God manifests himself in nature, right? The only problem I have with pantheism is the manifestation of God as a thinking being in nature, right? Spinoza, that's what I was thinking about. I would lean more towards Spinoza's thought process that what we would call God manifests itself in nature, but not as a cognitive thinking being, right? Which just boils it back down to it's just nature. There is no God. To be a God, you have to be able to think. Everything is about the public versus the private. What do you mean by that? So anyway, I'm not sure what you mean by that, Kelly. And it always is funny to me when like Christians like to say, "Oh, but Einstein was a Christian." No, he wasn't. Einstein actually stated that he believed in Spinoza's God. That what we see in nature, society is geared towards everything is about the public, instead of the private, indeed. But Einstein talked about he believed in Spinoza's God, version of God, idea of God, that if God would be nature basically, but without thought, without consciousness. So when I look out my backyard and them whistling ass blackbirds that they got here in San Antonio and other parts of Texas, but whistling ass birds, I'm just laughing because for some of y'all who are coming here on October 31st, who've never been to Texas, I want to see y'all face y'all walking down the street and there's like 800 of these whistling ass birds in a tree and you can barely see them and all you hear is that loud ass whistling. My brother literally, the first time he came here to visit, literally started walking down the middle of the road because he was like, I ain't walking under none of them damn trees with all them whistling ass birds. So in the middle of the road, he was just walking in the middle of the road. He was like, hell no. And then my cousin, when she heard him, she was like, what y'all got going on down there? Y'all got the birds? Y'all getting attacked? But when I hear them whistling ass birds, I don't see a conscious God, right? I just see nature. You know, millions of years of evolution, surviving extinction level events, evolving into a state of these whistling ass birds that live here in this south, in the middle and west Texas, that just live here because they have adapted to this environment over the centuries. And were they the same thing 20, 30,000 years ago? Nah, there was a variation of that same whistling ass bird, 20, 30,000 years ago. 20, 30,000 years ago, America, the United States, the world, the Northern Hemisphere especially, was experiencing an ice age. And so the temperatures were a hell of a lot cooler in San Antonio than they are now. And so whatever birds were here then, they were adapted to that environment. But then as the ice melts and things warm up, they adapt some more. And they consistently and continuously adapt. Adaptation is true and verified. But if there was a thinking God, that thinking God would be creating these adaptations. But they only happen because of the environment, because nature dictates for those adaptations to happen. So this God there is no manifested God thinking through this process. There was no thinking God to say, yeah, I'm gonna make an ice age so that when I make the ice age, all the animals and all the animals and plant life is gonna adapt to it so I can get to this point. Nah, if you was a thinking, manifesting God, you just made it bam, just like that. Just like that lying ass Genesis 1 and 2 story talks about this guy just manifesting shit by speaking it. Nah. So why? 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 And if I'm talking about one of y'all, I'm sorry about it. Why make your car make so much noise on purpose? I can understand that you got a hole in the muffler, but why make all that damn noise? And this is coming from somebody who, as a teenager, drove a Ford F-150 with a 400-barrel engine in it. And he used to go, wow. But these are grown-ass people with these loud-ass cars. These ain't kids, these grown people with loud-ass cars. See, if I was president of the United States, I would take away your right to have a loud-ass car. And actually, those kinds of laws are on most municipalities' books, where you cannot have a car that reaches over a decibel level. It's not enforced majority of the time, but so you don't have a right to make your car as loud as you want it to be. The louder it is, the more power you have. No, actually, it doesn't. Especially not to sound racist, because I don't want to be racist. But for some reason around here, you see all these little Honda Civic looking cars and whatnot that can't go faster than 100, 120 miles per hour, but they put these mufflers on that makes their car like, you sound like it's squeezing, like it's constipated, making all this noise, and they be, and I'm like, dude, you ain't even reached 40 miles per hour yet. Oh, they'd be killing me. They'd be killing me with all that. I'll be driving around in a damn old Chevette with a sound system that costs more than the whole damn car. Cause I'll tell you, it's a couple few times I done raced them little jokers just to prove a point. Like your car making all that noise, but you're way back there now. You let my rice burning machine alone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to close out for today. I've had a great time. Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed. When I came up with this subject matter, I thought I would get some of those, to say it plainly, I thought I'd get some MAGA Christians on here. Thought I'd get some evangelicals on here, but seemed to not have worked. Thought we'd get some evangelicals on here, but thought we'd get some people who can justify and that America was founded on Christianity and is a Christian nation, but we failed. We failed. We failed. We didn't get any on here really. Most people are in agreement that America is just not a Christian nation. But I do say we have to fight against it. We have to fight against it. They're trying. The most powerful political group in America right now is doing their damnedest to make America a Christian nation, trying to implement things. And I know in 3 years and some change, when we have a new political leadership, depending upon who it is, all that shit will probably go away and get rescinded. Most of it probably get kicked to the curb. But it's the way the world works. The way the world works. But if culture doesn't fight against it, the leadership won't fight against it. And for the Christians, recognize that you may think it's cool now. Oh yeah, we got the 10 Commandments in school. They get teaching the kids the 10 Commandments. They get to see it every day. You might think it's cool now until they start infringing on some of your versions of Christianity's belief, right? That's when all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop this, but it might be a little late then. So you better jump on the train right now. You better jump on the train. So if I say to you, nothing bless you, it's the same as me saying, God bless you, pretty much. Nothing blesses me but me and other people. If you want a blessing, that blessing gonna have to come from other people or yourself. Like my grandfather said, get off your ass and get it done, because ain't nobody gonna give it to you, and ain't no God gonna make it happen for you. You better get off your ass and bless yourself. Right? I can bless my wife. She blessed me yesterday. She blessed me. It took me to a restaurant I've never been to. Seen the restaurant plenty of times, never been there. Good food. It was a good restaurant. She blessed me with 4 of one of my favorite cigars. It's a blessing. Some people, ain't gonna name no names, they blessed me with some cash app for my birthday. So thank you, because that cash app paid for our, and they, well, one of them was very specific. I'm buying you a drink. Went to Books Whiskey Society. The best. I gotta say, that bartender made the app, had the best presentation, but also had made the best. And why can I never think of the name of that damn drink? What is the name of that drink? But he made the best one I've ever had. You know, the one where they smoke it, but I don't like them to smoke it because I smoke it with my cigar. What is the name of the damn drink? Why can I never think of the name of that drink? Oh, it's not a Long Island iced tea. The only words that are coming to my mind is Home Alone. It's not called Home Alone. What is the name of the freaking drink? I'm pissed. An old fashioned. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Sherry. An old fashioned. So, who was that? Obi? Oh shit! I just said the name. I said I wasn't gonna say the name. Yeah, old fashioned. Thank you, Sherry. This dude made the best old fashioned I've ever had in my life, and then served it in a chilled glass too. And then he was doing all the twisting and this. He was all into it. I was like, that dude good. I like that. Good presentation. Made a great drink. Had a great part of the cigar with it. So, yeah, I forgot why I was even saying all that. Oh, because my wife blessed me with that. And people, the gentleman who said, I'm gonna buy you a drink, blessed me with that. That's the only blessings you get from other people and yourself. That's where all blessings flow from. Other people and yourself. They don't flow from anywhere other place. They don't flow from any God. Oh, I need you guys to do me one favor, one favor, one favor. What subject matters would you guys like to also discuss? You can post them on this video afterwards, or you can post them on the videos that I do later on. But what other subject matters would you guys like to delve into? What topics, especially the historical ones, because you know I like the historical topics, or how things are historically inaccurate in the Bible, or psychological issues with the Bible. What types of videos and stories, what types of videos and discussions would you guys like to have on this channel within the framework of the things that we talk about? Right? Matter of fact, I'm gonna give a few minutes here, even though I'm hungry. Give a few minutes to see if y'all throw up something right now. You put something out there right now. Like, what are some of the subject matters you like to talk about? And you know, I see people like when I'm scrolling through Facebook and YouTube, I'll see some lives that people are having conversations about. They seem interesting. I have this thing about me though, like I can see, like, what's her name? Shit, just forgot her name too. She was having a great conversation today, and I was like, damn, I like that conversation. I know a lot about that conversation. I'm gonna go over, but then I feel like I'm not gonna go over and have the same damn conversation she had. I just look like I'm copying. I know it doesn't matter. That's just how my brain works sometimes. But it did inspire me to make a video about what she was talking about, because I would go off into some subject matters that she didn't, that they were not talking about concerning the same issue. And I guess those can be live as well when I'm approaching it from a different perspective, but with some of the similarities that they talk about. But what would you guys like? So Dahlia said, Mary saying God got her pregnant. Okay. Contradiction in the Bible. I really want to hear you talk about the duplicate chapters. Duplicate chapters. When you say duplicate chapters, are you saying that like how two books of the Bible will talk about the same thing, but then they contradict one another within that conversation? When you say duplicate chapters? Who's the other one? Not the Tartarians. I did a lot of research on the whole Tartarian thing a while back, a couple of years ago. I did a live on it. Maybe a whole nother conversation. Jesus' resurrection. Spiritual or bodily or not at all. Oh, I'm gonna let Kelly come up here. I don't know if she hit it by accident. Oh no, she disconnected. She got an accident. If there is a God, then that God has to be subordinate to the universe. You know what that sounds like? Well, I can take that two different ways. Like, if there is a God, then that God could only have manifested things based on how nature works. Oh, thank you, Texas goddess, for the birthday wishes. So this God will be subordinate to the universe could mean that he is only capable of doing things that are within natural laws of the universe, or subordinate in which hardly nobody researched, which has a lot of flaws, but nobody researched the Boltzmann brain, that the universe itself would have manifested and created God, but very temporarily, like a temporary moment of that creation. But Peter Sam, research Boltzmann brain, Boltzmann, Boltzmann brain. Research it. How do I buy cigars? The cigars that my wife rolls, send me an email. Put the email address in here. Send me an email. I haven't set it up yet. I am going to be setting up a website where I'm going to be not only selling the cigars that my wife makes, but I'm going to be selling cigars, period. That's going to be an online humidor. I'm not going to open up another cigar lounge right now in my life, but just do an online humidor. Yeah, Yahweh verbal predicates third person singular masculine form. That's a long ass sentence to me right now. Yahweh. Let me put it in third person. Okay, got that. Oh, shit. That's supposed to be brain. Boltzmann brain. 2 Kings 2:18 and Isaiah. Why do you want me to go read something? You're trying to keep me on here. I'm getting off here nowhere near past 3 hours and 30 minutes. I don't care what part I'm in. Is the Boltzmann brain theory like we are all in someone's brain? Yes and no, Dalios. Yes and no. But there's a part of the theory that we're all also Boltzmann brains. It's an interesting theory. It's just a thought experiment. It's just a thought experiment. And I spent like 4 hours reading about it. So I want y'all to spend 4 hours reading about it. I want y'all to spend 4 hours reading about it too. I wonder if can I do this? I've never tried to do this. Let me see if I can do it. Isaiah 36 to 39. What chapter of Isaiah? Or is that the whole thing of Isaiah? Did I mistype that? 2 King 18. So you're saying chapter 18 to chapter 20, and then Isaiah chapter 36 to chapter 39. It's a whole lot of chaptering. So 18 is about Sennacherib and Hezekiah and that whole bullshit. Okay, I'm gonna have to go and read all that. I'll write it down and go and read that separately. That's a lot to read right now. Oh, because so you did read those chapters. Yeah, who goddamn reading this? I should not have asked y'all about that to give some ideas. Oh, I'd say 36 through 30. Okay. Yeah, that's some bullshit, Center Star. You know how much wayward homework I give myself? Where I see something, hear something, piques my interest, then I go to spend 3-4 hours researching. All right, so I appreciate everybody. Hey, if you can still meet us here in San Antonio, October 31st through November 2nd, it's still not too late. All you got to do is call the hotel. There's a link in the description of the video on YouTube. All you got to do is call the hotel, tell them that you're coming for the Free Thinkers meetup. You cannot use the link anymore. That will not work, but you can call the hotel. And this is our agenda for when people are here. If you are local and you are attending, then make sure you contact me so that we can make sure you get up to the place, up to where we are going to be. When we're at the poolside having our discussions. And of course, you don't need to contact me to meet us at the Japanese Tea Garden because it's not at the hotel, nor at Devil's River Distillery, right? They make a good old fashioned as well. But that Devil's River agave bourbon, par excellence, that thing is so good, right? But yeah, so I've enjoyed our time frame that we've been talking today. We go live Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time until we go about 3.5 hours, sometimes more, but we really just go till I get hungry as hell and cranky, and I am reaching those stages. So, oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Plus some dancing. Sherry just reminded me, plus some dancing. We're gonna see how that works. I'll be doing some dancing this weekend as we go into a gala this weekend. Is it gala or gala? Gala? We went to a gala this weekend, and I'm gonna be doing La Salsa Merengue, and especially dancing with the older ladies, especially this one little short older lady. That's gonna be my girl. I gotta practice though. I'm gonna be practicing today. Gotta practice today. You gotta practice today and tomorrow. You gotta get ready. But me and Ophi, we're gonna tear the flow up. So I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. 12 noon Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.